sprint goes here. Mile. I flew all day and did the best I could, but you're going to be carrying me.
Okay, thank you. You're watching Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. On this Tuesday edition, it has been a glorious morning here at Santa Anita with the sun about to come up, and then that changed suddenly. About 17 minutes ago, we observed Practical Move, who was preparing for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, suffer a severe medical episode on the track. At this time, we do not know exactly what happened, but Michelle Yu was trackside and has some more details on what has turned quickly into a somber morning here at Santa Anita. Michelle?
Todd, like you said, Practical Move was out on the track this morning, and it appeared that his rider dismounted in the middle of the racetrack, and then he was quickly attended to by veterinarians. Again, we don't have any further information about what the medical episode is, but I can tell you it was not a breakdown situation. This was a different type of medical episode, and we will do our absolute best back here to find out what the diagnosis is for Practical Move.
We are working with Breeders' Cup officials who obviously are in charge of the veterinarian team, and whatever details they can give to us, you will hear throughout the show. But again, Practical Move, your Santa Anita Derby winner and one of your favorites for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, suffering a severe medical episode literally minutes ago. Okay, joining me here on the set, just off the paddock at Santa Anita, is Kate and Bradar. Kate, not the way that I wanted to welcome you in, back from Kentucky. You've been a horsewoman all your life. You know this is part of the game, but it's devastating anytime something happens, even if it's a minor injury.
Todd, I think it underscores how fragile it is when you're dealing with living, breathing creatures. And that is something that is not a point taken lightly by any horseman on the backstretch or anyone who's been involved in this sport for years. Trainers know that small things can go right or wrong very quickly, and big things as well. And it does set the tone going forward. But at the same time, as people are attending to issues with animals that are in need, you also have business going on, looking forward to a few very, very important days, perhaps some of the most important days of horsemen and horses' lives. So I think it's just something that people need to keep in the back of their mind constantly, that trainers, especially riders, the people who are hands-on with these animals, are very well aware of how fragile they are and do everything in their power to make sure that they safeguard as much as is possible.
Okay, and just to emphasize what Michelle Yu brought up, this was not a quote-unquote breakdown situation. It was a medical episode, something different. We don't know exactly what that is. We do know this. Our thoughts are with Tim Yachtine and the connections of Practical Move. As Kaiten mentioned, just like life, everything continues on, and our training does continue on here at Santa Anita. We're going to get back into the preparations for all the works leading up to the Breeders' Cup, and we will have more information for you about Practical Move. We will be back after this.
With NetJets, travel will always be personal. We do everything it takes to make every flight exceptional. Every single detail of your experience is personalized, just for you. As our standard is not just to meet our definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
Hey there, it's Craig Carden. I know I can't believe it either, but the World Series is officially here. So if you're choosing to make a wager on the series this year, please be sure to do so responsibly. Gambling should always be fun, social, and entertaining. If at any time you reach a point where it's not all three, take a break, take a breath. Go to FanDuel.com/playwell. Go there right now. Run. Go there and learn more.
You're watching Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. I'm Todd Schrupp alongside Kate and Bradar, and we're looking out at Derma Sotogake, one of a couple of hopes for Japan in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic.
Derma Sotogake is no stranger to travel. He was in Maidan in March of this year to capture the UAE Derby, and then went to the United States, competed in the Kentucky Derby. Kind of a even performance in the Derby, and hasn't done anything since then. So his star quickly evened out a little bit after rising very quickly. Many thought that this would be the best hope for a Japanese-based horse to come in to Kentucky at that time, or a foreign horse overall. But looking at him on the track, he's, to me, a bigger, stronger horse than he was when we saw him in the spring.
And he's a son of Mind Your Biscuits, and to show you how a lot of careers intersect, Chad Summers was the trainer of Mind Your Biscuits. He will send out Clapton up against Derma Sotogake in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. But as Caton pointed out, kind of odd circumstances to come here for the Kentucky Derby and then not race at all until the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. But Derma Sotogake finishing up some work this morning here at Santa Anita, preparing for the biggest race of 2 championship days. Yesterday, post positions drawn for all 14 of the Breeders' Cup races. And let's take a look at the field that ended up lining up for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Caton, Archangelo, 7-2 as the second choice. Arabian Night installed the favorite at 3-1. Interesting to see how the 3-year-olds are so respected at the end of the year, at least with the morning line. I want to focus a little bit on Archangelo, because you've been watching the questions that are going to Jenna Antonucci about the replacement of the back shoe and what they've had to deal with. Are you concerned at all with what Archangelo's up against time-wise before the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, dealing with this foot issue?
Well, listen, this is not the time to have any issues.
Yeah, you don't want it.
Whether
it's
it's
not
a
perfect.
shoe, whether it's any little thing. It could be a little cough or a scratch or just nothing, but at the same time you don't want to see it. So I think that Jenna Antonucci's trying to kind of keep an open mind, make sure that everything's okay, but at the same time, it's definitely not what you want to have happen.
And of course, the media keeps asking the same question over and over and over, and it was asked yesterday at the post position draw. Here's what Jenna Antonucci had to say.
You're in good form. You're in good form. What we want to know is, what do you think of the draw, the post position for Archangelo in 1?
He's won from the one before.
Okay.
So that's what we think of it.
So no issues with 1 at all?
Nope.
Okay. Now, last couple of days, Archangelo hasn't been able to get out onto the track. Just tell us what the issue's been and where we're at with it now.
It seems that everyone's quite stressed about this for us. So thank you, everybody, for your grave concern for us. Had a warm hind foot. Pull the shoe off. You know, horses love to see our schedules. They're rather inconvenient. So we'll be patient, always put the horse first, and make sure he is 100%.
But do you feel at the moment pretty confident, as far as you can be, that he's in as good shape as you can get him, notwithstanding what you've just said?
He's rather annoyed with us right now, so yes.
But that's a good thing, isn't it? When he's annoyed, it means he's in good shape.
Yes, absolutely.
And you described him memorably to me earlier this week as, well, tell everybody how you described him.
A sarcastic teenager?
A sarcastic teenager. So just give us an idea of what his character is then.
I mean, everybody knows, and I'm sure everyone's tired of sitting here tonight. I'm just kidding. You guys have done a great job. No digs.
Talking of sarcastic,
okay.
Yeah.
We understand. I don't know where he gets it from. No, we're thrilled with him, and he has just a huge personality, as most know that have really cool colts. You know, if they're not being a little bit mean, they're being a little bit sarcastic, and these teenagers and college kids that we get to train, it's a blessing to all of us.
All right, well, there you go, Brittany. Jenna Antonucci. We're all incredibly stressed on Archangelo's behalf because a lot of us are really rooting for you.
Well, we appreciate it.
But Jenna is as cool as a cucumber.
All right, Caton, there's several things on this show that I don't think anyone should try at home. One of them is interviewing a trainer.
Right.
You make it look really easy because you've been around the backside a long time. You know trainers, obviously, very, very well. But you've got to catch them at the right time. You've got to ask them the right question to get the answer that you want on behalf of your audience. Jenna's got to get her at the right time.
Let me just say, Jenna, and I speak, I think, for all women who are involved in this sport, Jenna carries an unfair load going into the Breeders' Cup Classic because not only has she had to take care of her horse, but she's had to kind of carry the torch for women in racing, for a woman being successful in racing, and I think she's handling it very well as far as all the pressure that's concerned circulating. But at the end of a long media coverage day, I think that's a lot.
Yeah, and let's not forget she's got to train Archangelo for the biggest race of his life. So where are we right now on this day? The previous 2 days he was supposed to come out to the track. He did not. Joaquin Jaime, what's going on with Archangelo?
Yeah, Todd, I'll get to that in just a moment, but let's refresh everybody's memory on the time frame and how we got here, and Jenna touched on that just a second ago, but he had his final workout for the Breeders' Cup Classic last Wednesday. That is 10 days out prior to the race. That is something that is normal in his training and normal in Jenna's program. He breezed 4 furlongs here at Santa Anita in 47-2. Then on Saturday, that's when Jenna said that he had a little warmth in his left hind foot, so they removed the left hind shoe on Saturday. As he mentioned, he did not train on Sunday and he did not train on Monday, so he has missed training the last 2 days here at Santa Anita. I went back to Jenna's barn earlier this morning. I had a conversation with her at 6:15. At that particular time, she told me that her and the team were waiting for a blacksmith. I said, well, is he going to be able to train later on this morning? She said, well, this is a very fluid situation. As of right now, we're just going to go ahead and see what happens, and we will figure all of that out as the morning progresses. So, Todd, we're just going to have to stand by and wait and see if Archangelo is going to make his way out to Santa Anita and train here coming up later this morning.
Okay, yet another storyline that we'll have developing throughout the show. Whenever I need a ray of sunshine, I turn to Andy Biancone, and I turn to her now.
Todd, we all need a ray of sunshine this morning. Obviously very somber with the news of Practical Move. We were all just shedding some tears here in this corner, but there's beauty and sunshine everywhere you look. And right now, Tamara and the Mandela team being my little piece of sunshine. Tamara just getting all the love and attention from her exercise rider, Austin Solis, and assistant trainer, Taylor Canberra. Tamara, how are you doing this morning? A woman of many words, very wise, radiating sunshine onto all of us. Beautiful AM. She drew post position 7 yesterday, and she's ready to rock, Todd.
And she is the shortest price morning line favorite at 4-5. That might seem extreme in a Breeders' Cup race, but it applies here. Tamara, so far, at least it looks like, has no equal. She's been brilliant in 2 starts, and then you back that up with a pedigree that is bred in the purple Caton. It comes together here for Tamara in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile
Yeah,
Fillies.
for me personally, this is, and I'm sure for a lot of people, really special because Beholder, her mother, was a favorite of so many. And Beholder holds the distinction of not only being a Breeders' Cup winner, but a horse who came back year after year. She started strong as a superstar, and she continued to build on that reputation every year. And I thought perhaps her biggest moment came in her last start in the Breeders' Cup. So now we see her progeny, Tamara, daughter of Bolt Doro, being this mature. To me, she's ahead of where her mother was at this stage of the game.
Wow, that's a huge
now,
statement.
I'm not saying in ability. I'm not saying in ability, Todd, but I'm
Okay.
saying in just maturity. She seems to have an old soul. I mean, I've never seen a 2-year-old stand on a chilly morning on the side of the rail like that and let somebody interview her.
Yeah, her mental acuity is absolutely right up there with her tremendous physical gifts. So you are right on about that. And we showed that earlier when a couple of days ago she was out on the track completing her final workout, horses all around her, and you wouldn't have known that she knew it. She just went about her business.
You know, people say that horses don't know, they don't have human characteristics. But when you saw her next to the pony, and when you see her walking here, you can't tell me that she doesn't sense that everybody is watching every move she makes, and she's enjoying it. She seems to be thriving on it. She just has that composure and that star quality that you don't see in every single horse, but you definitely see in her at this moment.
Well, it sounds like you just described Zenyatta, because that was one of those horses where there was no doubt she understood that people were here to see her, and she delivered in the moment. Future Stars Friday, the biggest star you're looking at right there, Tamara. We cannot wait for the juvenile fillies. You know, and talking about the similarities to Mom Beholder, earlier this year, after her first start, we put up a side-by-side picture of her versus Beholder, and astonishing how much they mirrored each other physically.
Truly, it is amazing. You know, that doesn't always happen, whether it's broodmares or sires. We talk a lot in this business about stamping your progeny, and great horses oftentimes do that as far as their physical characteristics. You see some consistency, but it's not always. And I think it's very rare that you see this much similarity from a top mare, especially, to her offspring. She's also on the racetrack done everything right. In her career debut at Del Mar, she sat that kind of patient stalking trip. Then she comes right back in the 7 furlong Grade 1 Del Mar debutante, and she's a little closer to the pace, and she still just waits for Mike Smith to ask her, and then she explodes. So that's also a trait that I think her mother had, but that you don't often see in a young horse.
Okay, so there's an old racetrack axiom for horse players. Never bet an odds-on favorite trying something for the first time. She's going around 2 turns for the first time.
I think she's bred for it.
Yeah, I know. You know, Simon refutes it by saying she might be better around 2 turns. Like, she's winning these sprint races easily, but maybe that's not her game. Certainly long range, that was not what they intended her game to be. But going back in time with Tamara, she won the Grade 1 Del Mar debutante by nearly 7 lengths. One of the horses she beat there came back to win the local prep race, the Chandelier, which leads to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So the form has held up. But Tamara, around 2 turns, it wouldn't seem to be any kind of...
Look at her. She feels good.
Yeah.
That's rare to see, those little buck jumps, and I think she wants to do a little bit more.
I'm excited to see Tamara move into the starting gate as the biggest star on Future Stars Friday. So Tamara out on the racetrack. We also have Algiers out this morning here at Santa Anita. And so taking a look at other horses and other divisions here, and watching these two go out together and about to get out and have some exercise.
First horse in line there, Todd. And this is not uncommon for the European horses. I'm sure you guys have been discussing the fact that the way we train horses in the United States is very different from the way they train in Europe. They tend to travel in groups, and they go single file very oftentimes, and they kind of play follow the leader all the way around the racetrack. Horses are herd animals by nature, so it's very comfortable for them to have another horse either in front of them or in back of them, and depending on the competitiveness and the general nature of the horse, tells you where they're going to be placed and whether they're cooperative. But Algiers, who's coming in off of a 2nd place finish at Woodbine in the Durham Cup, which was at a 1.16 miles on the synthetic rather than the dirt, is going to be very interesting to see, because he has no experience per se with conventional dirt outside of Maidan, and he was a 6 1/4 length winner in that race. It was a very impressive effort, but he's facing a tougher, more seasoned dirt field, I'd say. But looking very well and happy here. He's, I think, maybe a competitive type horse. I'm guessing that's why he's the lead horse. He kind of has that alpha thing going, and the rider is having to take a little hold of him just to keep him in this nice, steady rhythm.
Algiers out on the racetrack, and along with Carla's Way, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. So one racing on Saturday, and the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, the other part of Future Stars Friday, and getting more of the Europeans as they clear quarantine here at Santa Anita.
Now, Carla's Way, that also makes sense that you would put the more experienced older horse in front of the 2-year-old, kind of show them the way. But the filly, Carla's Way, is coming off a win for Simon Crisford. She won over at Newmarket and did it pretty convincingly, and it looks as if she has a little bit of early speed too, which isn't a given with horses coming from overseas, but will serve her well here.
More stars in the thoroughbred world making their way to the track. You'll see them when we return on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
Welcome back to the Sportsbook Draft, where FanDuel's pick is in.
With the first pick in the 2023 Sportsbook Draft, FanDuel selects horse racing.
Brilliant pick, as FanDuel becomes the first and only sportsbook app where you can bet on horse racing.
Just a savvy move by a savvy franchise.
New customers get a no-sweat bet on the Breeders' Cup up to $200.
It's like they know each other.
What do you think Rob's saying to him right now?
Probably something about oats.
Looking to give your handicapping game a sharper focus? RaceLens is the most in-depth product in horse racing, with unique features found nowhere else. Customized PPs, summary and individual research, handicapping angles and backtesting, true odds predictive analysis, and pace projection. With innovative analytics powered by data from Equibase, it will change the way you follow horse racing and take your game to the next level. RaceLens, bringing clarity to handicapping. Learn more at equibase.com/racelens.
I'm Greg. I'm 68 years old. I do motivational speaking in addition to the substitute teaching. I honestly feel that that's my calling, to give back to younger people. I think most adults will start realizing that they don't recall things as quickly as they used to, or they don't remember things as vividly as they once did. I've been taking Prevagen for about 3 years now. People say to me periodically, man, you got a memory like an elephant. It's really, really helped me tremendously.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Early voting comes inside. He wins the Preakness by a length. Disarm takes the Met win.
Anita, they win the Bet Park, Pennsylvania Derbies.
Wicked Halo, who wins the Raven Run Stakes. Nobody catching Society. Red Route 1.
Cyberknight has won the National over Tama and Gunna in the Forgo.
Echo Zulu wins the Next Gen Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
A man, his tractor, and his family. These are the Upshaws, though he goes by Shaw, which stands for skilled hands at work. From cutting hair and mowing grass to roasting marshmallows, he's got a grasp on what matters most. There's a story in every piece of land. Run with us on a John Deere tractor and start telling yours. John Deere is the official partner of the Breeders' Cup World Championships.
To be in New York in November, just after September 11th, you know, it made for kind of an eerie feeling. Tiznow was going for a second straight Breeders' Cup Classic.
And they're off.
But to see him run the way he did, you know, I think it brought out a lot of pride in America, pride for the American horses.
With 5 furlongs to go, and on the outside, the daunting presence of a horse of the year, Tiznow, and he's right there just off the pace.
When a horse like Tiznow, with the heart that he has, just keep grinding, keep coming, keep coming. You didn't know who was going to win it.
And the field turns for home. Here comes the arc winner, Saffie, and he storms to the lead.
The call is going to go down as probably the best race call of all time.
And Tiznow is battling on, the American Horse of the Year, and the arc winner are heads apart with the Barron Development Classic. On the outside, Saffie, Tiznow fights on. Here's the wire, desperately close. Tiznow wins it for America.
I think in some small way it might have helped the people of New York who were racing fans, but also were really struggling at the time. You know, it's what horse racing can do. Horse racing can capture the imagination of so many.
Tiznow remains the only horse to win the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic back-to-back, and Elliott Walden recounting that story very well, Caden. I was privileged to be there. The emotion that he talked about, it was crackling all day long because of the events of September 11th, and we got to kind of set it aside for a moment and enjoy the sport we love so much, and it meant a lot to people who weren't even huge horse racing fans.
You know, it was even more remarkable with time to look
Yes.
back and remember that moment and remember what he accomplished and what he accomplished as a whole when you look at his career, to have been a champion 3-year-old and horse of the year, to come back to the Breeders' Cup, and then to instill that brilliance as well as that ability to handle classic distances and that versatility into his progeny. It's quite a list that he's assembled over the years.
And Elliott Walden got to have Tiznow out at WinStar, where he stood for stud before he was pensioned. Great to go out there and visit. Tiznow, back-to-back Longines Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Saudi Crown is trying to win this year's Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Speaking of trainer interviews, you spent a good portion of this week at Churchill Downs.
He's going to
Kate.
miss me.
Yeah, with Brad Cox. But I have to tell you, of all the trainers we've talked to, he was radiating confidence. He wasn't hiding it. He loves a lot of his chances at the Breeders' Cup.
I think he feels very strongly that all his horses are coming in as well as you could possibly expect horses to come in, including Saudi Crown, who you see on the track right now. Now, here's a son of Always Dreaming, who doesn't look anything like his sire, but he has the same style, which is a very high cruising speed and an affinity for sloppy racetracks. He demonstrated that in the Pennsylvania Derby and the Jim Dandy. The question, he was only beaten a nose in the Jim Dandy, so I think of that as almost a victory because he really showed a different dimension, a different level, I should say, of ability in coming up just a nose shy of Forte in the Jim Dandy. I thought his first true test. He's come a long way in a short period of time, but Brad talks about the fact that they always believed he was a really special, really talented horse. They just had to take time with him and give him the time that was necessary. It certainly paid off. For me, the question is where the 3-year-old form stacks up against the older horses, and especially when you're talking about speed. You know, his game is to run them off their feet. That's easier when you're against your own 3-year-olds versus when you're suddenly against everybody who could be fast.
Well, the hard time I'm having squaring is Brad Cox's comments immediately after the Pennsylvania Derby, which goes back to maybe sometimes trainers don't want to put things out there because then they're not held to that. But he said immediately afterwards, if we were to look at the Breeders' Cup, we'd be looking at the mile, not necessarily the Classic. Maybe we won't go to the Breeders' Cup at all. And then now here we are, and we're going for the biggest prize. So I wonder how much of that is Brad Cox wanting to do this? How much is this the ownership wanting to do this?
You know, I think it's telling that that Todd Pletcher said that he entered his horses where he was waffling between the, or I shouldn't say waffling, but
like
choosing,
Charge It would be one, yeah.
between one spot. Charge It ends up in the mile, but the reason he entered his other horses in the Classic was because of the pace scenario, and he's a big part of that pace scenario. He wanted a legitimate pace up front. So there are those who believe that there's going to be some competition for Saudi Crown on the front end. I think there will be too, especially when you have Arabian Night, although that outside post position kind of spreads everything out through the field.
Big gray son of Always Dreaming out on the track right now, Saudi Crown. Michelle?
Guys, I'm so excited to be joined right now by Christophe Lemaire, and I just love to bug people that look like they're really busy. Who are you watching right now?
I was watching Shafria running on the turf course. He looks good.
He did look good, actually. He just went right by us. Don't you love when we interrupt you when you said I was watching before we got here?
I was watching the beautiful scenery. Santa Anita track.
I want to go back to a week or so ago, a couple days ago, and tell me about this win with Equinox.
Yeah, once again, the horse was fantastic. We had a perfect race in third position, and the horse was just too good for the others. And the way he could keep that strong pace all the way around was unbelievable. I couldn't believe the clock, actually, the time for that 1.25 miles. But he does it so fluently and so easily that you cannot feel the high speed with him.
How many times have you gone back and watched the race, or do you just play it mentally?
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times, but I keep in my mind the pleasure to be on his back all the way around, it was just a pleasure, and I feel very privileged to be on the back on such a good horse.
Going forward to this upcoming weekend, you have several mounts, but we'll talk about Derma Sotogake because we've been watching him out here, and everyone is questioning the break from the Kentucky Derby to now. What do you think?
I think he's in better shape, better condition than he was before the Kentucky Derby. What is good is that he had that American experience, and for sure he will be very competitive, maybe more competitive on Saturday than he was for the Kentucky Derby. He looks great. He looks very calm, and I hope he's going to run a good race.
We've got some people giving us their favorite Breeders' Cup memories. What's yours?
Wow. I think in the old times it was Archangelo with Jerry Bailey at Big Odd, and in France it was a shocker, you know, even in America. But yeah, when I was a kid, watching Jerry Bailey riding the rail and taking the lead with Archangelo in the Breeders' Cup Classic was something unforgettable.
Thank you for the time and the memories. We appreciate it.
Welcome.
Joaquin?
And Michelle, thank you very much. We got horses walking down the shed row right now here in Barn 59 with trainer John Ortiz, who has Brightwork in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies this year, your first Breeders' Cup starter. She comes in here 4 for 5. How is she acclimated to her surroundings since coming here to Southern California?
She's done really well since she's been here. You know, she's a professional traveler, I think. You know, she's won at many different racetracks, and she's been really great to travel with.
You're getting ready to go to the racetrack in just a little bit, but we see her here in her stall right now. Tell me a little bit about her personality. What is she like to be around here at the barns and when she's on the racetrack?
You know, she's really cool to be around. You know, we call her Daniels, my brother's little girlfriend. You know, she's the sweetest can be. They got a nice bond going on. But everybody in the barn, you know, she's just a sweetheart to be around. But once you take her to the track, she does turn it on. She's very professional. She's very focused. She's aware of all her surroundings, and I think she's just a very smart horse, and I think that's one of her biggest assets.
Well, out of all those things, too, she was also very precocious as she won her first 4 races. Did she tip her hand early on in her training that she was going to be a very precocious type that she has been?
Yeah, I know. We thought that she was going to be very special from the very beginning. My dad started her in Ocala, and he, you know, before he sent her up to Keeneland, he told me, he's like, John, this filly, she's very special. It's like, you're going to really like her. And of course, you know, first work, we're like, okay, it's not going to take much to get her started. And sure enough, we debuted her at Keeneland, and, you know, the rest is history.
What is that family experience like for you with your dad starting these horses and starting these babies before getting them to you? What's that relationship like, having your dad start your horses before you start training them on the racetrack in the afternoon?
You know, I think it's a big help. It's a big, you know, to just nobody else has their best interest than my dad, you know. So I know what he's sending me is ready. What he's sending me is the truth. You know, we're not, you know, they're well prepared. And it's great to have a family bond, you know, because it's something that my dad instilled in us from very young, hardworking, and the horses, the love for the horses definitely came from my dad. And, you know, so it's just very special to be able to share this with my brother, my sister, and my father.
I love that. And lastly, what can we expect to see your filly do on the racetrack when she goes out there in a few moments?
She's going to have a nice, easy first day here. So we're just going to jog her for about half a mile and just maybe give her a 6-7 furlong gallop. Nice and easy. Just kind of let her get used to her surroundings, and then we'll pick it up the rest of the week.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the time. Good luck on your first Breeders' Cup starter.
Thank you.
All right, Todd, trainer John Ortiz has Brightwork in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
Thank you, Joaquin. At the top of our show, we told you the major story that has developed here this morning. Practical Move, this year's Santa Anita Derby winner, who was also preparing for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, suffered a severe medical episode out on the track here at Santa Anita. We have more information, starting with the fact that veterinarians immediately responded to the incident here on the track. As was established before the Breeders' Cup, there is a robust team of expert veterinarians from the California Horse Racing Board, First Racing, and the Breeders' Breeders' Cup on site currently. So if any incident comes up, there is immediate care and attention given to that equine athlete. Leading up to the World Championships, the Breeders' Cup has been working closely with Santa Anita, the California Horse Racing Board, and the Breeders' Cup veterinarian team to ensure every Breeders' Cup runner is fit to race. The Breeders' Cup veterinary team also coordinated with regulatory and track veterinarians across the country to thoroughly review the veterinary records associated with all potential Breeders' Cup runners starting in early October. So this process has been going on for a while. This expanded veterinary review protocol is designed to ensure, to the extent possible, every horse that made the trip to Santa Anita for the World Championships is sound to race and train. These processes include expanded veterinarian exam protocols, increased testing, 24-hour equine surveillance starting Tuesday, today, for domestic runners, and that took place on Sunday, October 29th, just a couple of days ago, for international runners, and enhanced reporting requirements. Practical Move was a part of this process, this safety process that has been put in place, and we had this incident this morning. We can get more details now because Michelle Yu is with a member of the Breeders' Cup veterinarian team.
That's right, Todd. I am with Dr. Will Farmer, who is the co-leader of the Breeders' Cup veterinary team. Will, an update for us on Practical Move?
Yes, this morning at about 6:45, Practical Move was returning from a routine gallop trained by Tim Yaktine, and at that point experienced what we are thinking is a cardiac event. Per standard HISA and CHRB protocols, Practical Move will undergo a complete and thorough necropsy.
Thank you so much for your time. Todd?
Okay, so we have officially learned from the Breeders' Cup veterinarian team, Practical Move has passed away. Again, devastating news for all of us who love the sport. It doesn't matter if it's at the highest level on a daily basis in a claiming race. We love these animals to our core. We never want these situations to happen, but we also know it's an inescapable part of, as you said, life and horse racing overall. So again, our thoughts and condolences to Tim Yaktine and the connections of Practical Move. This is, if it's hard for us, I can't imagine what they're going through right now. We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup in just a moment.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one also runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, our best-selling big fan hands down. BigFans.com. Comfort without compromise.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning, which ranks even higher than the 18th best feeling, saving a kid from a well. 59 years later. Find the #1 feeling winning on FanDuel Casino Reward Machine. Free to play every day with a chance at a $2,000 top prize.
Garbage time. That phrase never sounded quite right because no part of football is meaningless. So while some folks see garbage, FanDuel sees treasure. We see spreads to cover, overs to hit, and chances to live bet from the first down to the final whistle. So don't just watch football this season, cherish it.
Bet $5, get $150 bonus if your team wins, plus a profit boost every single day. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
40 years ago, we were founded for thoroughbred racing. For 40 years, we've set the stage for the world to come and race. We've dedicated our lives to our sport, to witness the unforgettable, to reach the mountaintop, to win a championship that defines a legacy. Our love, our dedication, our passion, it runs deep.
No horse did Arc de Triomphe and Breeders' Cup. I think Dancing Brave tried to do it and it got beat.
She was a super mare, and for me to be able to ride her in America, she got a diva reception. Cameras and all the press were after her.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Turf.
It was an epic battle in the stretch. Magico was a very good filly, and she prevailed in the end and gave everyone a great thrill, including me.
It's a Navel on the outside. In the center of the turf course, she has taken the lead, and she's pulling away from Magical, who continues to battle her, though. It's these two, 1-2 down to the finish. A Navel and Magical, and they're well clear of the others. Racing royalty, a Navel and Frankie Dettori. The ARC winner is the Breeders' Cup Turf winner, too.
You have a superstar horse like that, you want to showcase her around the world, so it was great that we took her there, and great that she showed how good she can be even in America.
I mean, statistically, it has been a love-hate relationship between the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe and the Breeders' Cup Turf. A lot of times they don't attempt it. Those who do come over here with big expectations and sometimes fail, but Enable came through, and that was a remarkable performance.
One of those Breeders' Cup moments that lives on. I was just speaking with someone not very long ago about her performance that day, and I remember that those of us that were there actually went out off the set and onto the turn just so we could watch her, not just in her race, but as she came back. There were so many people that were interested in just seeing such a great horse.
And again, the accomplishment should not be underestimated. Dancing Brave was considered one of the greatest horses Europe has ever had. He came over from the ARC, and he did not win the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. Let's talk about this year's edition. Mostahdaf is here for trainer John Gosden. John Gosden knows American racing very well. He knows Santa Anita very well. He used to be based here.
You know, I think he's probably the most well-versed of any European-based conditioner in the game today as to how to transition, what type of horses fare the best coming over, where to place them, how to prepare them. No one can do it better. And Mostahdaf comes in off of 2 straight wins, but spaced out quite a bit at Ascot and York, respectively. The Prince of Wales's and then the Juddmonte International. So stepping it up in many senses with each of those victories. I have a hunch that this 5-year-old son of the great Frankel is sitting on one of those lifetime best performances. The question is it good enough in what shapes up to be, in my opinion, one of the deepest renditions of the turf we've ever seen? To me, this is maybe one of the best from post to post of any of our Breeders' Cup races. This is an amazingly deep field.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And so, you know, a horse like Warlike Goddess, who this is her distance, and she can beat the boys. She's listed at 12-1 in the morning line.
Todd, I almost think he's got bell boots on in the back, which is a little unusual for us. We don't often see horses galloping, but you can see it's a pretty controlled gallop. I'm not positive that that's what those are. It's a little tough to see from here, but the bell boots are just kind of protective coverings around the hoof, and I think he's got them on in the back, although I can't see for sure with the shadows.
We are fortunate to have, as part of our broadcasting team, Rishi Prasad with us. Rishi, Mostahdaf comes in phenomenal form with those back-to-back Group 1 wins, but at the 1.5 miles, is this really his best distance, or is he stretching it to get to the 1.5 miles?
I think the 1.5 miles here at Santa Anita, Todd, will be fine for him. He has won over 1.5 miles. Now, he's run over 1.5 miles against Equinox in the Dubai Shima Classic earlier on this year. That's turned out to be one of the best 1.5 miles races of the season. Westover, who was in behind, well, Westover, of course, was a Grade 1 or Group 1 winner in Europe and placed in some very good races. And obviously, we know how good Equinox is. And Mostahdaf on that occasion chased Equinox. He was the one that took up the mantle of trying to make a race with Equinox and paid for it in the end. He dropped back to 1.25 miles, which is a distance that he has excelled at on fast ground. That's the other key thing with Mostahdaf. He does have excitable tendencies. When he turned up at Royal Ascot after a long layoff, he was very excitable in the paddock, getting very coltish, on edge, a little bit sweaty, and actually coming out of the barn this morning, he was a little bit edgy here. John Gosden was the one who stood with him, walked him out from the barn all the way down onto the racetrack. Inspiral, who's accompanying him as well, she was a little bit edgy as she came out. Both horses a little bit fresh. Frankie Dettori aboard Inspiral. I think both horses have huge chances. You mentioned the record of John Gosden, obviously here when he trained at Santa Anita when he was based here, but obviously his record internationally for the last few years. He has been exceptional with his success, and together with Frankie Dettori, they've teamed up and had wonderful success at different stages of their career, respectively, and Inspiral has been a big part of it for the last 2 seasons, and she won last time out at Newmarket. She won the Sun Chariot Stakes. She brought up a 500th winner at Newmarket for Frankie Dettori. A stunning performance on that occasion. Frankie Dettori gave her a no-nonsense ride. She was fired out from about 3 furlongs out. She quickened away from her field, and she won impressively from Group 1 winners, horses that have done well during the season. So she has a big chance. She's stepping up in distance. I think that'll suit her here as well. She has got a good turn of foot, but she's able to sustain it for quite a good spell, and she travels nicely in her races. That's the 2 key things with horses, those 2 horses. Being able to be in a good rhythm, being able to breathe and not use up too much energy, being out of sync and in a difficult position. And if those 2 horses travel in the usual rhythm that they do in their races, I don't see the distances for either horse, Mostahdaf or Inspiral, being an issue, because they both have the class to potentially win.
Outstanding insight that only Rishi Prasad can provide. Thank you. And as we watch Inspiral, both these horses that we're talking about for trainer John Gosden, Mostahdaf and the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf, and Inspiral and the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, are progeny of the great Frankel. But we mentioned John Gosden. He is maybe the biggest asset in both these horses' corners. Let's find out more.
Well, when you talk of Mostahdaf, here's a horse who actually raced in bottomless ground in the Arc at the beginning of October. Then we freshened him up, put him away, and brought him out for the Saudi Arabian meeting, the Neom Cup. Very valuable race, 1.25 miles on the turf in Riyadh at the big track there. And he won in tremendous style. We then came home, we were a little bit bold. We went and took on the unparalleled champion horse, Equinox from Japan. We took him on over 1.5 miles, and we took the race to and paid the price. But he finished 4th. But then when you've done that, you then freshen. Come back home, that's the end of March, freshen for Royal Ascot. And then, of course, he comes into Royal Ascot and he runs a quite superb race to win the Prince of Wales in dashing style. And then another gap, because once you've won that, you either roll back in the Eclipse about 12 days later, which is too close in my opinion, or you wait for the Juddmonte International, which we did. So he doesn't have to have these long breaks, but that's the way it came up, because he has effectively been racing non-stop now for virtually 2 years, if you analyse his programme. You know, a great ride from Frankie, National ran a blinder, Paddington in 3rd, so it was a huge race. Small field, but it fascinating and exciting.
And it's a record-breaking Juddmonte International success for Frankie on his farewell.
And then we were hoping to run in the Champion Stakes at Ascot, but unfortunately, well, it would have been good if it was a weekend before its usual weekend, because the ground was perfect. But unfortunately, Storm Babbitt, I think they called it, flooded the whole country, including Ascot. So it was a little too soft for him there. And he heads off to the Breeders' Cup on the big flight. They're all going Stansted into Shannon, pick up all the Irish horses, and then on to California. We'd love it if the race was 1.25 miles, but he is a horse that, you know, he gets a win in your in ticket for winning the Juddmonte, so entry fees are waived. That makes quite a big difference. It's not an inexpensive venture going to the Breeders' Cup. And no, I couldn't be more pleased with him in his preparation. It is 1.5 miles, but they do freewheel down the hill for 3 furlongs before they cross the main track onto the turf oval. So it's what we call a pretty fast, sharp 1.5 miles. So Inspiral has been trained nicely since the Sun Chariot. Superb performance there, and obviously ran a great race in the Jacques Marois to win that, beating the horse who toddled up in the QE2 the other day.
But it's 500 wins for Frankie Dettori at Newmarket as Inspiral wins the Sun Chariot.
Her season has been not a long or heavy one. We were going to run in the Lock-in, couldn't. She wasn't quite right. Came to the Queen Anne, just needing the race a little bit on that ground. It got rain softened. but she raced to be second. And then, of course, we went to the Sussex Stakes. It was bottomless. It's been a funny old year for weather, hasn't it? She didn't like that, but we had what we call a very elaborate piece of work. And then 11 days later in to win the Chacon Marwa. And so, look, it's been a good season with her, 2 Group 1s. And she goes out there, again, stepping up in trip. I didn't want to run in the mile there. If you draw the outside, it's a nightmare because the bend comes up so quickly in the mile. So we felt, Frankie very much felt too, that the 1.25 miles would suit her. The American style of racing is very different. And she is a lady who likes things her way. She might decide that she doesn't like American racing, it's very possible. But she has been mostly running, as you know, on straight miles and such like. But she's in top order herself. And again, she goes there pretty fresh. Sometimes we used to go to the Breeders' Cup having run pillar to post all year in Europe and go to the Breeders' Cup as an afterthought, which doesn't really work because the horses are just a bit flat by then. But she is very much full of herself at the moment.
He's on Innsbruck. Look at. Good morning, Frankie. Yeah.
All right, we heard Michelle Yu there talking to Frankie Dettori as the next set comes out. And we also got to listen to John Gosden, every bit as thoughtful as you suggested.
Europeans everywhere, and then we have the Japanese horses right behind us in the paddock. This is just sort of an amazing and surreal experience that kind of underscores how far the Breeders' Cup has come in truly being a world-class showcase.
Joaquin?
Hey, Todd, coming back here to the barn, have a couple horses that are getting ready to go jog and gallop on the racetrack here in just a moment. We have the Dia over to my right for Nacha Correa. She's going to be galloping 1.5 miles here in just a little bit. She just won the Rodeo Drive not too long ago over here at Santa Anita. But the big white face in front of you that you're going to see start walking towards us right now, that is going to be Yiri for trainer Rudy Brissett, 4-year-old daughter of Shackelford with that big white face like her daddy. She just got in the other day. Rudy told me that this horse is just going to be jogging 1 mile today, going to be able to take it easy on her this morning. She has 14 starts, 7 victories. 4 victories have been this year, and she's rattled off back-to-back stakes wins. She won the Open Mind 2 starts back. She won the Grade 2 TCA stakes going 6 furlongs. The question for her now is she's in very sharp form. She's had a very good season, but she's going to be stretching out in trip, going 7 furlongs for only the 2nd time in her career. The only race that she has going 7 furlongs was the Grade 1 Madison Stakes, where she was behind Goodnight Olive. Clearly, we know she's a much better filly than that, but she's going to try to stretch that speed. 7 furlongs for Yiri. And Michelle Yu, Rudy Brissett, we spoke to trainer John Ortiz, who has Brightwork in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. That is John's first Breeders' Cup starter. Yiri is going to be Rudy Brissett's first Breeders' Cup starter as well, and she'll be competing in the Filly and Mare Sprint. We'll see her on the racetrack here at Santa Anita coming up momentarily.
Joaquin, I'm so glad you're talking about people with their first Breeders' Cup starters, because I'm joined by OJ Harrigy, who sends out Dreamfire. We're actually watching her right now on the training track. What's she going to do today?
Today we're just going to jog one, gallop one, and do something real easy, and she's ready to run, so hopefully everything goes well.
This has been our first time seeing her this week on The Breakfast Show. What can you tell me about her from a not handicapping standpoint, just about her?
She's very classy, very easy filling everything. But when she goes to the track, she likes to train.
And you've run her on 2 different surfaces. She's also trained on the synthetic. Does she have a best surface?
I think she likes everything. The other one I haven't really ran her on, but she trains is Tapeta. But everything else she does really well.
Now, this is your first Breeders' Cup starter. What's it feel like to be here right now?
Feels nice, you know. I'm glad to have an opportunity, and just hopefully everything goes well.
Have you gone to the breakfast marquee?
Yes, it's nice.
That's my favorite question of everybody. Are you dressing up for Halloween?
No.
Oh, come on, OJ.
A horse trainer.
I feel like if we did a poll, every horse trainer said they would be a horse trainer. Can I just ask you real quickly, too, why did we opt for the Fillies turf race? I know she won the Surfer Girl last time on the turf, but she's also run really well on dirt. What was the difference maker for you?
It was a very hard decision, but because she won the last time, going 1 mile, I know it wasn't as fast, but still I thought, second time she'll probably run even a little better. And I just feel run against Philly would be better for me.
Now, I want to also ask about her because it seemed like when she was starting her career and she was going so quick, we weren't sure if she was going to stretch out. Were you confident that when you put her in the Surfer Girl, she was going to be able to get 2 turns?
Well, when I trained her, I seen it a little bit, but I'd be honest with you, I was a little question mark too. But I wanted to give her the opportunity, and I think she'd answered it. So now here we are.
All right, I appreciate the time, and I'll let you finish watching her train out there.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, O.J. Harrigan with his very first Breeders' Cup starter this year.
And watching Dreamfire out on the track, she's ultra fast. There was controversy. You heard Michelle bring up that win in the Surfer Girl. The stewards took a long look at that race, ultimately left her up as the winner, but she proved that she could take her tremendous early speed around 2 turns, and she proved she could handle the turf.
You know, I think we make a lot out of stewards' decisions, and at the end of the day, we kind of sometimes overlook just looking at the horse's performance and ability, not necessarily whether they won or lost or whether they should have been taken down or not. So at the end of the day, I think the fact that she did prove some important elements going into the Breeders' Cup are the things to kind of focus on. But I will say I think this is a totally different situation and field of horses for sure. But it's always fun because that's the beauty of the Breeders' Cup. Even though the horses can look in very tough, they can rise to the occasion when you least expect it.
Someone will. And she's going to play a factor in the outcome of this race no matter what because of her early speed. Then there is the Chosen Vron. We've been talking about his credentials, a remarkable 8-race win streak, which hasn't captured the national attention in our sport. But it is rather remarkable. In and out of California bred company at a variety of distances. And he clearly loves Santa Anita. The Chosen Vron is going to be a force in the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Kind of draws perfectly in post position 6. You're right in the middle. He's a horse that can sit off the pace, which I think is always a huge thing. If you don't have to be on the lead, you don't become contingent on how you break and what others do right with you. And the win streak is just unbelievable. And I understand that most of those wins were in California restricted competition. It doesn't matter. A win is a win. In my opinion, when you can be running in stakes races and rattle off 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive wins, you're a special horse.
Chosen Vron showing that out on the track
he's beautiful
this morning. Let's go back to Rishi Prasad.
Yes, indeed, with a man who is very familiar with the surroundings here at Santa Anita now. He's kind of local. Frankie, how are you?
I'm good. You put me right in the sun. Thank you, Rishi.
Your face is beautiful, so we need to light it up, unlike mine, which needs to be in the shade. You sat on Inspiral this morning. I noticed when you got on board, she's a little bit fresh.
Yeah, that's her. She's busy. Yeah. And actually, for her standard, she was quite quiet. She took to the pony really good. She was nice on the track. Yes, yeah.
Now, one of the big questions about her is this step up in distance. Yeah. But I thought this track would be the perfect place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, she stays a mile. I mean, she ran a mile as a 2-year-old, so sometimes the mile turf here is very draw dependent. So I thought it was a good call to go against your own sex a mile and a quarter. And yes, she's, no introduction. Champion 2-year-old, champion 3-year-old, won a Group 1 F4. So she is what she is. She's top draw.
Are you still buzzing about the ride that you gave King of Steel to win the Champion Stakes at Ascot?
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. I couldn't have wrote a better script myself. The atmosphere was, I rode the Ascot over 30 years. I don't think I've heard a scream like it. The roof came off. It was amazing, amazing.
You had a tough race that day. When you look at the harsh reality of it, are you confident that a horse can bounce back from that to do his job here in what looks to be a very good renewal of the turf?
I'm not confident. He was, he had to fight hard and he had a tough race. No two ways about it. But he weighs 570 kilos and he's got plenty of meat there. And I'm sure that Roger would not bring him here if he thought he did a recovery in time. Like you said, staking on the Derby winner again. Interesting. Yeah, good race.
And you got 3 other rides, including one in the Classic as well, which would be quite exciting if you could land that one.
Yeah, Zandon, I'm quite pleased. Drug 2 was quite good. He also comes off the pace a bit. Third in the Kentucky Derby, stays well. Full field, so I'm sure it's going to be plenty of pace. That's what he wants. I know he's 20-1, but quietly he's not without a chance.
I quite like the fact that you're on unquestionable for Aiden in that 2-year-old juvenile turf. I thought it was a very good run behind Rosalian at Longchamp. How do you feel about his chances?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the juvenile turf, you always, as a full field, you need to have a bit of luck in running, but his form is rock solid.
And one for Rafe Beckett, Starlust?
Yeah, G-May, a good friend of mine. Rafe asked me to ride it. There's a couple in there probably higher rated than him, but he ran a good race in the Middle Park, so yeah.
And finally, Frankie, after all that's gone on in the UK, is it a little bit of a light relief to be in Santa Anita now and just able to concentrate on what's going on here?
Yeah, I've been here a week now and I'm loving it. Settled in really well. Saw my old friends, had a couple of rides this weekend. I had a nice winner. Yeah, this is my new home now, so I'm house hunting at the moment with my wife Catherine, and yeah, very pleased to be back. Try to make some connection with trainers for the incoming season.
Lovely to chat to you. Enjoy your week.
Thank you, Rishi.
Frankie Dettori is used to that. It starts out with one microphone, one camera. By the end
it's
of
like
the
interview,
all of a sudden the sun is blocked out by the media. What a treat for us here in the United States that he's called it a career in Europe, but he's going to extend that career over here. And it's my understanding he's doing that because he wants to get a legitimate horse for the Kentucky Derby.
I believe that's got to be in the back of his mind and something that when you've done just about everything else there is to do in the game, you'd like to try that one elusive thing that everyone searches for. It's also just a joy to watch Frankie in general with kind of a different mindset, I think, than I've ever seen for him before. He's now doing what he loves to do and doing it at the highest possible level. And having seen him over the course of his career up and down, it's really fun to see.
By the way, Songline behind a Songline, one of the favorites for the mile on the turf, presented by FanDuel in the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. Michelle?
Guys, I'm joined now by Aiden O'Brien, who's trying to make sure he's out of the sun, but also, we're not too backlit. I can't even count this high. How many horses did we bring to Breeders' Cup this year?
8 or 9, have we? I think, yes. Yeah.
Tell me about the order that they're in. I know we go over this every year.
Yeah, Broome is in front. He's obviously most experienced. And then Bolshoi Ballet's in second, obviously experienced as well. And Auguste Rodin third, Aesop's Fables fourth. And then the 2 horses for the juvenile, River Tiber and then the 3 juvenile colts, and then the filly Warm Heart and Content, and the Cherry Blossom is last.
So we tend to put the younger at the back.
Exactly, and fillies at the back, yeah, and the younger colts are in front of the fillies, yeah.
Mountain Bear seems to be getting a little warm. Is that his normal?
That's him, yeah, absolutely. He's just always a little bit edgy, but that's him, yeah.
I think everyone wants to know about Auguste Rodin coming into here. What are your thoughts about him?
Yeah, very happy with him. Everything went well with him so far since the last day, and this is a race we always had in mind. So, very happy so far.
What's it like to be back here and have everybody just in awe over your string every year?
Yeah, no, sure, it's a beautiful place here, and it's somewhere everybody looks forward to coming. Beautiful weather, and we're always feeling privileged to have horses good enough to run. Really, it's very competitive. We know that, but it's great to be here.
Are you happy to be out of quarantine? Is everyone ready to be training today?
We are, yeah. I think there's a hold up on the track, and I think that's the hold up really. I think there's a 15-20 minute delay.
We have a all workers break. That's why, and then gallopers can come out.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of a delay on that, but listen, they're ready to go now whenever the track opens. So hopefully.
And what are we all going to do today?
Just going to do a canter. A very gentle canter, really. It's just their first. They have been in quarantine, obviously. They've been walking in the barn the last few days, so just do a gentle canter.
Of all your juveniles, which one do you like the best?
Sure, I suppose we've unquestionable River Tiber. I'm happy with both of those colts, 2 good colts. All their form is good, really, coming in here. The filly Cherry Blossom in the sprint, and Content in the fillies. I suppose River Tabor is the horse we always loved a lot, even though he got beat his last twice. We think he's in a good place, and look, very happy with Unquestionable, obviously, as well.
Appreciate the time as always.
Pleasure, thank you.
Andy, I know you're standing by watching this group as well.
Michelle, wow, this back gap right now feels like the 210 freeway during rush hour. It is very crowded. We have the whole Aiden O'Brien contingency circling around. As you said earlier, Michelle, the main track will open first 10 minutes for workers only, and then gallopers will be allowed. So there is still quite a bit of a wait for some of these horses who are just going out for a regular gallop, but the whole Aiden O'Brien contingency, very well mannered, very well behaved. They do this every single day. They have their order that they go in. They stay in line, stay in their order, nose to butts. And the horses are herd animals, so they just follow each other. They know this is their routine. We see Mountain Bear getting a little bit hot, but everybody else seems to be very well behaved. We've also got some Todd Pletcher trainees making their way to the track. A lot of American horses standing closer to the gap. There's Life's an Audible, and here we have Agate Road. Sorry, I couldn't read the towel. But everyone is Agate Road. My bad. You know, I'd love to butcher these names. But everybody looking fantastic back here. And oh, we have Lindy walking here. Beautiful. Hi, Brendan. Good morning. Oh, this is just the best, guys.
Yeah, and this is what is great about the Breeders' Cup, to bring all these horses from around the world into one spot. It's a thrill for all of us. If you truly love the sport, these are horses that we're watching on television throughout the year, and now they are right here in front of us, and the different approaches too.
That situation, though, too, is so unique. You just never see that many unbelievably talented horses gathered in one small area where you look at all of them, where everywhere you turn, you're seeing another superstar.
Yeah.
I would also say we toss around the word class a lot. And when you see horses that are finely tuned, feeling really good, ready to go out and do some pretty intense exercise, and they're all minding their manners and just circling around like that, that is the epitome of class. These are animals that instinctually and through all the training know exactly what they're supposed to do, and it's to focus on the job at hand, not get distracted by the fact that something is very, very unusual to what they're used to doing every day.
And Rishi, it has become our highlight to these morning shows, watching the Aiden O'Brien group come out and dominate the racetrack and show us something very different from what, say, John Gosden and other European trainers are doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting what Caden was just saying about how the horses, or Aiden, talking about the behavioral patterns of these horses, as you guys have seen over the years when they come out, and with having to encounter different challenges, whether it's a delay this morning or whatever. But it's often said that horses imitate their trainers, and Aiden O'Brien is very unruffled in wherever he goes and whatever he does, and the horses are all unruffled, even though there was a significant delay this morning, obviously waiting for the track to reopen and waiting for some ponies to come up here and accompany the horses down. Everyone remained lovely and calm as usual with the Aiden O'Brien horses. Often you see, sometimes in the cauldron of the Derby at Epsom, horses get carried away, but Aiden always saddles his horses up in the open area. They don't get caught up into in the saddling boxes. He gets them out in the open, gets them nice and relaxed. He saddles them up himself, and he's lovely and relaxed in his own manner, and that transmits itself to the horses. Very rarely do you see any Aiden O'Brien horses misbehaving. Warm Heart, Auguste Rodin, so many talented horses. I think Warm Heart has a huge chance in the filly and mare turf. Obviously, she's up against Inspiral, but she's been very good this season, particularly last time out when she won in France at the Arc meeting, and she won the Yorkshire Oaks as well. But of course, the big talking horse for Aiden O'Brien is Auguste Rodin. And you remember now that he is a Derby winner, and it is rare for a Derby winner to succeed here at the Breeders' Cup, in the Breeders' Cup turf. However, it has been done before. It was done by High Chaparral here at Santa Anita. He did it twice, but here at Santa Anita, of course, he dead heated with Johar back in 2003. Of course, Auguste Rodin raced in the same colours that High Chaparral raced when he won the Breeders' Cup turf back in the day. And Auguste Rodin has been a wonderful performer when he turns up and he produces his absolute best. There have been a couple of inexplicably disappointing efforts, the 2000 Guineas and the King George. But however, you take his best performances in and around that, and then he has a huge chance. And the fact that he missed the Arc and he missed the Champion Stakes, and he is fresher than the likes of King of Steel, for example. He'd be a big contender in a race that you've all spoken about today, being such a deep Breeders' Cup turf. The fact that he's got that little bit of freshness on his side, like Mostahdaf as well, in fairness, then he is a huge player, of course. But there's that nagging doubt at the back of your head, the back of your mind, that there is the odd, really disappointing performance, the 2000 Guineas and the King George, where it's really hard to understand what went wrong. What type of Auguste Rodin we'll get, we have no idea. I mean, there are other solid performers, the likes of Broome, for example, who's been to the Breeders' Cup before. He's won in races in Dubai. He's a very good horse, Broome, but he's not in the same class or category of Group 1 outstanding performance that Auguste Rodin has proven to be this season. Auguste Rodin, for me, is the standard setter in the Breeders' Cup turf. I just wonder, can we trust him to produce his absolute best? Because he hasn't always delivered, and that's not being unfair.
With you, Rishi. The story last week was who was not here for Aiden O'Brien, led by Paddington, but there were 3 horses that were expected to come and did not. When you look at the group that ultimately ended up here, you know, we heard John Gosden saying you can't just take horses of the Breeders' Cup as they're on the downside of their season, it's towards the end. You've got to point towards the Breeders' Cup. How do you feel about the horses that are ultimately here for Aiden O'Brien?
Well, the one horse that stands out is, of course, Auguste Rodin, in the sense that Aiden O'Brien has been pretty specific after the Irish Champion Stakes that his next target was going to be the Breeders' Cup turf. He said that from some way out. It's always been the plan. I think the fact that the horse excels on quick ground would certainly suit him, and that's why I imagine that this has always been the big target for him at the end of the season, and not the Arc or not the Champion Stakes, where soft ground is often prevalent. So you can understand why. So it's a positive for Auguste Rodin. 1 or 2 others, you imagine that it's a great opportunity for a horse like Warm Heart, who's had a busy season. She's competing in some really tough races. You question whether she has been targeted at this race. It does represent a very good opportunity for her. But amongst the 2-year-olds, I think it's interesting that he's got River Tiber and Unquestionable both lining up along with Mountain Bear in the juvenile turf. I think those horses have earned their spot in the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf, particularly a horse like Unquestionable, who has just stepped up with each run. He ran really well in France behind Rosalien. I think that's really strong form. I'm slightly surprised that Ryan Moore is not aboard him and he's chosen to ride River Tiber. But River Tiber is unexposed, stepping up in distance, and that might be the key to why he is the choice of Ryan Moore. He's been very good in the early part of the summer. He won the Coventry Stakes at Royal Ascot. He had excuses when he got beaten next time out. Aiden O'Brien actually said before that run that he wouldn't be quite at his best, and then he didn't run too badly last time in the middle part where he was staying on quite strongly. I think those horses have earned their spot at the Breeders' Cup. They've worked their way. They're 2-year-olds, so they can find their way. Warm Heart, maybe it's a bit more of a challenge for her, but someone like Auguste Rodin, a horse like that, it's his target. The Breeders' Cup turf is his target, and he, above all the other O'Brien runners, is the one that you would have the most respect for, given his record and the fact that he's been targeted at the race. But of course, like I said, the nagging doubt, 2 performances that were so poor, it's hard to trust him.
Rishi, brilliant insight. Thank you very much. And Aiden O'Brien did go out of his way to mention River Tiber to Michelle Yu. When we get to this point, and we are so privileged to see this at the Breeders' Cup each and every year, Aiden O'Brien participating in this event, truly making it, and again, one of the best trainers on any continent. Bringing numbers to the Breeders' Cup says everything, but when they come out like this and in the style that no one else could replicate, I always say we need to cue Flight of the Valkyries here and have their own soundtrack.
It really is something amazing to see, and hard to explain because there is no place else in the world where this would be such a sight. If they were at home, they would be training at their own yard, and it wouldn't look anything like this. But to see the horses in single file order, It's almost like a circus display or a Cirque du Soleil, if you will, as far as the synchronicity that's necessary. The riders being in touch with their horses, but also knowing exactly what their trainer wants them to accomplish. And to just watch it is a sight to behold. Now, to Rishi's point about planning for the Breeders' Cup, I would also suggest that when you're dealing with 2-year-olds, it would be pretty presumptuous, especially when you're on a different part of the world with a whole different option of races to choose from, to say from the very beginning, oh, we're going to point for the Breeders' Cup with this 2-year-old. They kind of earn their way there versus the older horses where you know what you have and you put them into a situation where you can plan a campaign based on the idea that this is a horse who probably has both the talent and the agility to be able to transfer their form overseas. So I think it's a little bit harder to say that early on with a 2-year-old.
Horse racing has a great history with tying some great horses into the ballet. Nureyev would be one of the one that stands out, but we do have Bolshoi Ballet preparing for the Breeders' Cup Turf, Rishi.
Yes, and Bolshoi Ballet, a horse who at one time Aiden O'Brien thought was a leading contender for the Derby in Epsom. Sadly, he didn't quite come up to scratch, but had a very good 3-year-old campaign in North America. Was off the track for a fair amount of time as a 4-year-old, but he has come back this season, and he has managed to get back to the winner's enclosure. Just don't think he's ever fulfilled the potential that I thought Aiden O'Brien seemed to believe he had during his classic campaign. Of course, he's part of the Breeders' Cup Turf contingent for Aiden O'Brien, along with Broome. But you would imagine that Broome, Bolshoi Ballet, they're all falling in behind the leader of the pack in that race, in Auguste Rodin. But you have to pay tribute to the way that Aiden O'Brien has got Bolshoi Ballet back to his best, or something close to his best once again, after his obvious injury issues. And he's back now, and he's a contender for the race. Whether he's quite up to 1 or 2, like you say, King of Steel, Auguste Rodin, Mostahdaf, Ernesto. It is a very, very strong race. I haven't mentioned Shariar as well for Japan, who's also in there amongst the contenders for the race. It's so strong that the likes of Broome and Bolshoi Ballet, you think, would probably come up short, even were they at their absolute best. It's such a tough race, such a good race.
And Bolshoi Ballet, number of starts here in the United States, including that most recent one, as Rishi was mentioning, the Grade 1 sword dancer, and then 2 years ago was in the Breeders' Cup Turf at Del Mar. Was not much of a factor in there. Huge long shot at 40-1.
You know, the one thing about Auguste Rodin versus Bolshoi Ballet, we know what they've done overseas, but Bolshoi Ballet came over to Saratoga on that yielding ground and made pretty easy work of it. Now, definitely the sword dancer isn't the same field as the Breeders' Cup Turf, but here's a horse who has shown that he has absolutely no problem with adjusting to North American, if it's constraints or the differences between racing overseas, whereas Auguste Rodin, we've got to count on the fact that he's just a top-class animal, and he'll be able to do it.
Okay, Kate, now the Aiden O'Brien contingent out here has picked up the pace. They went the wrong way around the track. Now they're going the right way. How many times will they go around? Will it just be one time
it's
around?
Probably one time, a long one time around,
okay,
so that it'll be about a 1.5 type of lap.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to guess. They may go even a little bit farther, but remember, they have the track to themselves, but then they have to, they'll take their time going off the track and may even well walk around the barn area a lot before they get back to their barn.
I mean, we're sitting up here. If I were trying to do this, obviously this would be quite a bit of exercise for me, but just watching the way we watch these other horses, especially American-based horses, blow out 5 furlongs and work a fast half, to the untrained eye, it doesn't look like they're getting much out of this. But they are.
They are, and they've had miles and miles underneath them, as well as a campaign of racing to get them to this point as far as fitness is concerned. Now it's just maintaining. Every once in a while, though, you will see some of the Euros, Aiden O'Brien's horses included, do little blowouts, but it's not quite like what we're used to seeing, where it's from a specific pole, well in hand, plotted out an exact number of days in advance. It would just be, as this unfolds going into the race, the belief that the horse needs to do just a little bit more, open up his lungs, the type of horse that's going to respond favorably to that. But for the most part, this is the day-to-day type of work that builds up that foundation that everything else stems from. And also the fact that they're doing this while other horses are now starting to come to the racetrack and train is another distraction that enters into the equation. The fact that they are still able to maintain their rhythm. You know, some of them might get, especially the 2-year-olds, a little excited, want to join the fray. Oh, what's going on with all these other horses around us? And rails to the inside and outside, which is also a little bit unusual for the most part. And yet they just keep going about their business. It's pretty remarkable to see with the even intervals in between each horse. Ears pricked, they're almost a carbon copy one of the other. And just a beautiful sight.
Andy, you loved being there before they got on the racetrack. What's it like right now?
Oh my gosh, Todd, this is incredible. If you could see them all right now. Oh my gosh, there's Broome, there's Bolshoi Ballet. Oh my gosh, I'm right in the way, but wow. Wow, that was amazing. That was just magical to see them all going by like that. They should pull up and jog back right by me, but as you can see, these horses are all very comfortable galloping in this manner. American horses, if you tried to do this, they would certainly get way too strong, way too keen, and all pass each other. But these European horses are very used to being covered up. That's the way they are trained to relax, being covered up. And it's going to be exciting to see all these horses throughout the week leading up to the big weekend, Todd.
Andy, that was a great flyby on your jockey cam. That was absolutely gorgeous. We've seen it from many angles, but never that angle until this year on the Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. Obviously, 2-year-olds are rookies in our sport. So the 2-year-olds, I wonder how he determines how they get in that line if they're at the back. I wonder if a 2-year-old has ever led them out, you know, one that's far advanced.
I think it could happen if they were the type of horse that were dominant and needed to be toward the front of the line. But as usual, you can see Aiden spot on, since everybody maintained their distance and seemed to learn from each horse in front of them.
Okay, this has been a spectacular moment here, much needed this morning. But we do have some breaking news with Joaquin Jaime.
Come to us right now. Yeah, Todd, thank you very much. Here with trainer Jenna Antonucci, who has the Belmont Stakes winner and Travers Stakes winner, Peter Pan winner, multiple graded stakes winner, originally going in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but unfortunately some breaking news that Breeders' Cup officials just announced right now with Archangelo not going to be competing in the Breeders' Cup. Take me through this timeline from last Saturday. What actually happened with Archangelo?
He's honestly doing great. He's bouncing and thriving and happy in a stall. Like we've talked about all week long, the left hind shoe, we pulled off, and it just, he's not fully resolving, and we're running out of time. And as we've talked about from day one, this will always be horse first, no matter absolutely what. Sure, there's big racing coming up, but as we famously talk about spreadsheets and time frames, they don't really care about. And so we have so many amazing options here for being able to diagnose and figure things out. They have amazing modalities that we're going to take advantage of that. And so to be able to do so, I've run out of time, and we've run out of time, because obviously you have to sedate horses and do those kinds of things. And so with having withdrawal times and all of the things that we have put in place that are so important for us to continue to do right by our horses, we need to do right by him, and missing a race is going to be what it's going to be this time.
As you mentioned, you ran out of time. In a perfect world, how much more time would you need to get him healthy to be competing in a race? How much time would that actually need for you?
We haven't had the opportunity yet to answer all those questions. Right. And so it's, it'd be throwing a dart at a dartboard at this moment. Yeah. And so right now, we're going to stay focused on him, make sure he's doing awesome and thriving and healthy. And, like I said, lean into the vet crew out here. They've all been amazing and really trying to ensure that we're stewarding the best possible decisions for these guys. And just John Ebert and I, we've talked a ton about this. And if we have ever had any question or doubt, it's a no. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's a no, as I know it would be for every other owner and trainer and every horseman on the backside. And so we're going to stay down, and we're going to double down on that. And unfortunately, it means we get to miss the Classic this year.
You horsemen and you horsewomen, you guys surprise me when you take your lumps with news like this, because it seems like you're taking it incredibly well at this moment for being so fresh.
It's not about me. I've said that from day one, and that would get me emotional. I'm not going to get emotional this morning about this, but no, listen, it's about him. It's his journey, and I've said from day one, it's his journey, and whatever we accomplish is so cool and great and all of that, but he's going to be okay, and I'm going to make sure he's okay, and John's committed to that too. And he is. Like, I'll send you guys out video later on. He's, tearing the barn down right now, but I'm not comfortable. And if I'm not comfortable, then it's a no, and we're committed to this process.
Well, Jenna, thank you so much for coming over here. Thank you for the time. And I'm so sorry that you're not going to have Archangelo competing in the Breeders' Cup this year.
We'll be fine. It's all good. Thank you.
All right, guys, Jenna Antonucci, and the breaking news here with Archangelo not going to be competing in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year, joining Go Rocket Ride and Mage as defections in the Classic here at Santa Anita.
Jenna Antonucci deserves an Eclipse Award for the way she's handled herself all year long, and that was the punctuation of that. Any parallels that you remember historically?
Well, I was trying to, I can't think of Breeders' Cup Classic per se, but I do remember when AP Indy ended up not running in the Kentucky Derby, and just the idea that there was the clock ticking and you're going to do right by the horse, but at the same time you're holding out hope that everything is okay. And when we're talking about feet, we're talking about the equivalent of a person waking up in the morning and now your toe hurts a little bit. Is it an ingrown toenail? Is it something more serious? If you can go out and walk around and you're perfectly fine, but you kind of know it's there. Meanwhile, the horse can't communicate exactly. This is the person, the trainer, in this case Jenna Antonucci, having to interpret all the signs and all the data that she has. So the shoe came off to see, well, maybe was the shoe pinching him? Did he just hit something different in the stall that caused an irritation? And is this something that is going to be just fine if we take the shoe off and now we put on a different shoe? When she talks about running out of time, it's that they haven't been able to 100% determine what the issue is, and also put a shoe back on to be able to put the horse back out on the track and see how they're moving and assess whether or not it was something minor, insignificant that's already passed, or something more serious that needs to be addressed. And that doesn't mean that you won't see him in the future with some time, but it's the worst possible timing so far as the opportunity of a lifetime to get to showcase this very special horse. So, I think at the end of the day, it's a very simple decision, but with very large ramifications and a lot of emotion attached to it.
Yeah, just to punctuate what you're talking about, it's not just the $6 million attached to the race. This horse had a legitimate chance to be Horse of the Year, the ultimate honor in our sport, but to do that, he had to participate in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. So for Jenna Antonucci to say none of that matters, he matters the most, she speaks on behalf of all of us, especially on a very tough morning like this that we've had leading up to the Breeders' Cup. Let's get back into other trainers and their preparations, and Michelle Yu standing by with one of them now.
Thanks, Todd. I'm with Saffie Joseph, who had just sent out 3 witches. She's not a very big filly.
No, she's not overly big filly, obviously well-bred filly, and last time she ran a big race in the Princess Rooney.
I feel like her 7 furlongs races are just phenomenal.
Yeah, most definitely. That's her best trip so far. It's been proven, and she improved last time. She's going to need to improve a lot this time to get a piece of it.
Well, like you mentioned, she's going to have to improve. I mean, that was a big effort for her. Do you see her just coming into a great form right now? Is that why Breeders' Cup became on the table?
I mean, she earned her spot, and then she came out the race well, and we spoke it over her Bob. And he wanted to give it a shot, and we saw no reason to. And obviously, she likes the distance. You got to be in it to be able to win it. So we're going to take a chance.
I love that line. You also have Skippy Longstocking out here. We've seen him the last couple of days. Tell me a little bit about how he's doing.
He's doing well. The race is in good order. I mean, it was between the Classic and this, and we just thought the mile give us a better shot. Cody's Wish, super horse, deserving favorite, and a great story. So it's hard to kind of root to be the horse like that, but we're going to give him a shot. And Skippy's a horse that shows up, and he tries hard.
I want to go back to his last race, the Charleston Classic, where he went gate to wire. Is that tactics that you want to try to employ here?
I mean, he has run well being fourthly placed. There's a little more speed in this kind of race, obviously, and didn't expect him to be in front in the Charleston Classic, but he just ended up there, and Tyler gave him a great ride, and he showed up that day. So hopefully he can repeat something like that, and if he does, he's coming in good order. We have some confidence in him, so he needs to do it on race day, and hopefully he does.
What was the last thing you dressed up for Halloween?
Halloween, I haven't dressed up for Halloween for a long time.
Never? I mean, when you were a kid, did you?
I mean, I don't even remember. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Well, at least you didn't give me the line that everyone tells me that they're going to be a horse trainer this year.
No, I wanted to be a horse trainer from the time I was a kid. When the jockey went through the door.
Yeah, I'm going to say, look, I'm 5'2". I think Saffie's jockey's dreams are maybe way in the past.
But he's doing real fine as a trainer. We wish him the best of luck at the Breeders' Cup. Hopefully luck is on your side. Well, you can also be sure that the best place to play is through FanDuel Racing. We've got you covered for the Breeders' Cup and through FanDuel TV. Obviously, all these programs to get you ready. But with your FanDuel Racing account, we've got Win Bet Insurance, and that applies to 3 days here at Santa Anita. The Breeders' Cup is Friday and Saturday, but they have a Thursday card this week before the Breeders' Cup days, and all 3 days, Win Bet Insurance is available. Find out all the details through FanDuel Racing. We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup in just a minute.
Hey there, it's Craig Carden. I know I can't believe it either, but the World Series is officially here. So if you're choosing to make a wager on the series this year, please be sure to do so responsibly. Gambling should always be fun, social, and entertaining. If at any time you reach a point where it's not all three, take a break, take a breath. Go to FanDuel.com/playwell. Go there right now. Run. Go there and learn more.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
FanDuel's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by WinStar Farm and by Phasic Tipton. Chase the day with Day Chaser Cocktails, the official ready-to-drink canned cocktail of Breeders' Cup.
Kate, earlier we were talking about Songline. She had a long schooling session behind us. A lot of times these schooling sessions don't take that long, but it seems like the Japanese connections take their time in just about everything that they do. Very, very patient overall.
Oh, it's fun to watch,
yeah,
right?
it's fun to watch her out on the track as well.
So they had her in the paddock for a very long time, and now kind of an open gallop as opposed to what we saw from Aiden O'Brien's horses, for example. 5-year-old mare last raced in Tokyo, was second, beaten a nose. She, before that, had put together Grade 1 or Group 1 back-to-back wins. She's definitely a talented horse, and boy, she's an imposing horse when you look at her, both in the paddock and now out on the racetrack. She covers a lot of ground, a very powerful-looking horse as far as how she strides. I'll be excited to see her run, and especially based on the way the Japanese horses have performed in the Breeders' Cup in recent times. I would say that kind of sparked a flame in them this year in bringing even more and perhaps even better.
We showed a backtrack of her Yasuda Kennen, the race you mentioned 2 starts ago, which is the defining race for milers in Japan, and the acceleration that she showed in the final furlong of that race. If she brings it here into the FanDuel Mile presented by the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. To me, she's the horse to beat. Rishi, I know your home base is in Europe, but the Japanese Raiders go everywhere, and you follow all the action. Who are you with right now?
Yes, very respectful of the Japanese challenge. In fact, I quite like Ushba Tesoro and Derma Sotogaki in the Classic. But I'm just going to break away from talking about that to catch up with actually a colleague of mine, Kate Harrington. Sometimes we work together on television back in the UK, but she's here in her role representing your mum, Jessica Harrington. You've got Give Me the Beat Boys, who's had a pretty good season. I mean, he started off with those couple of wins and has earned himself a spot. And we say about 2-year-olds, they earn themselves a spot at the Breeders' Cup because they have to perform in order to warrant coming here. What was it about him that suggested he was going to be suited by this challenge?
You know, I think in the middle park, he didn't quite stay it up the hill in Newmarket that day over 6 furlongs. He showed a lot of early speed that day, and he was very good in finishing 4th to Van Dijk. And then he was also, if you take the Coventry a furlong down, he was still in front as well, and he finished 4th that day too. And maybe he just hasn't quite seen out the 6 furlongs. He was very impressive when winning his maiden over 5, and then the Marble Hill, which is an easy 6. So at the Curragh, and then he was a creditable third in the Phoenix Stakes on ground that he didn't actually like.
Is your mum calling?
No, this is an alarm for there's a race at the Curragh going on. But I will remember to look at it in a minute. But yeah, no, he's a lovely horse, and we've had a great season with him, and I think the fast ground over here is really going to suit him, and he showed plenty of early pace in the Coventry and, like I said, in the middle park.
How has he settled into life here in California?
He's a very relaxed horse. I think if all horses could be like him, it would make training very easy. He's just jumped out of the gates there this morning, and he's taken everything in his stride.
I won't keep you too long because the alarm's gone. But it does show you how good she is for television. She can do 3 or 4 things at the same time. She can talk to me, listen to the questions, and also be prepared to accept her alarm to watch a race at the Curragh coming up. Is it a winner that we can see at the Curragh?
Oh, Snowhaven. If she puts her best foot forward, she has a bit of a chance.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, I'm always hitting the snooze button when that alarm goes off. Taking a look at Cuban Thunder, and this horse will be trying the dirt for the first time and is a long shot in the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile presented by Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance.
His only win in 6 starts came back in May, and his second try was against a little bit easier horses. We're not talking a Group 1 competition until much more recently in September at the Curragh on good ground in the Vincent O'Brien, where he was well beaten. So there's not a lot of form to go off of to make a strong case, but I think it's interesting that the connections are opting for the dirt. I'm not as familiar with this pedigree. He's by Profitable out of an Invincible Spirit, a Dragon Pulse mare, Invincible Spirit also in the pedigree. So this is definitely a turf pedigree, but that doesn't mean that they can't run on the dirt. In most instances with these very European pedigrees, it means very few horses have even tried it.
And taking a look at Big Ev's out on the racetrack, and Rishi, something that we're not used to here in the United States. So we have Big Ev's preparing to face fellow 2-year-olds in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, but 2 starts ago, he was in the Nunthorpe against older horses, and he was only 5-1 in that race. Living the Dream, the older horse who won that day at 28-1, is a real shot in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. So what do we make of Big Ev's?
Oh, Todd, it's old hat for us. We do it all the time with our 2-year-olds. In fact, if you remember last year, the Platinum Queen, who came here to run in the Juvenile Turf Sprint, she also ran in the Nunthorpe. She bumped into Highfield Princess, who was obviously very well fancied for the turf sprint last year. So it's not an unusual thing for us in Europe. But Big Ev's, he didn't quite produce his best. He came up short on that occasion behind Living the Dream and Brad Sell and Highfield Princess. But you can understand why he was quite well fancied for that race, because he was always thought of by his connections, trainer Mick Appleby and all those surrounded with Big Ev's, as being a potential star. He won first time up. He followed up by winning at Royal Ascot. And then he went from Royal Ascot and he won the Molecomb at Goodwood, and that was a really strong performance in tough conditions. So he was 3 for 3. You can understand why, getting all the weight, that he was quite well fancied for the Nunthorpe. But unfortunately for that day, that occasion, he just came up short, wasn't quite ready for the test. So sometimes horses can go the wrong way after that, after such a big test where perhaps their frailties are exposed. But it's to his credit and to his connections credit that he came back at Doncaster and he won the Flying Childer Stakes, but he won it with a really impressive performance. He broke fast from the gates and he had his field beaten 2 furlongs out, and he won comfortably enough in the end. The other point about Big Evs is that he has been given a little bit of an American preparation, or as close that we can get to it as possible in Europe. So Adam West, who trains Living the Dream, he managed to get hold of a bell to train Living the Dream to the sound of American Bell from the starting gates, and he's loaned that bell to Mick Appleby to help him train Big Evs. And I've been speaking to Big Evs' work rider earlier this morning, who says that he's responded really well to it, and he also said that when people talk about him being an aggressive type, the good thing about Big Evs is he knows when to switch that aggression on. When he's doing his normal canters in the week, where he's not being asked a serious question, he says he can be a little bit awkward, but when he's asked to do his real work and he has to do proper work, go and race or go and do serious work in the morning, he switches on, and that's when he wants to get the job done. That's when he becomes really aggressive. So hopefully he's on his game. He is a very fast European 2-year-old. There's always the question that whether our fast European 2-year-olds is quite as fast as the American 2-year-olds. But I think with Big Evs, I think we might be talking about something that can certainly hold his own. Andy?
We're jogging alongside our defending turf sprint champion, Caravel. She looks excellent on the track. This is the first day I've seen her out here. She just had a nice, easy gallop. But what I find very interesting is from last year to this year, she's had a bit of an equipment change. Last year, she was galloping in a rubber elevator bit, was very aggressive. Now, the Brad Cox team has switched her into a D bit, which is just a very plain bit, and they've added some draw reins. So those draw reins are just to give the rider a bit of leverage because she is a very aggressive filly to gallop. We don't want her ever doing too much, but she looked very relaxed out on the track today, is taking everything in and has her halo on. She's been on her best behavior so far.
And she shocked everyone last year. She was 43-1. Then quickly she looked like the dominant horse in the division, and now back-to-back losses. I don't know what to think of Caravel this year.
Well, Brad Cox will say that it was the footing, that they really weren't ever as confident that she could duplicate her form on softer ground. And in fairness, at Saratoga and the Troy, it was definitely soft.
Yeah.
And then when she came back at Keeneland, it was good, and it was a far cry from what she had raced over when she won the Breeders' Cup. So I do think that there is some merit to that. But the other part of this is she's a 6-year-old mare, and it just is really unusual that a horse could be brilliant year after year after year. That's what made some of those horses so great that we're able to do it. But I don't know that she really has lost a step, to be honest with you. I'm eager to see what she can do on firm ground here. This is the type of turf course she should like. And Andy referenced the change in demeanor and also equipment. She's very tough, but she's very focused now. In the beginning of her career, she was a little bit difficult to keep weight on. She was a filly who was a little finicky and kind of required a bit of a delicate touch. I would say that's all behind her. She's really settled. She knows who she is. You don't see any nervousness. She is carrying more weight than she did as a general rule and looks tremendous to me. So I'm thinking that she's capable of running a big race. I think this is a tougher field last year, in my opinion, than it was a tough field last year. There's never an easy field in the Breeders' Cup, but I think this is a deep field.
We've been hearing a lot about the Longines Breeders' Cup turf being maybe one of the deepest we've seen in maybe the last 10 years. King of Steel certainly adds to that, Rishi.
Oh, he certainly does, Todd. He is a serious horse. He has had a fabulous season. He was supposed to run at York. Things didn't pan out that day. And he went to the Derby at Epsom, and he produced a magnificent effort for a horse who was pretty inexperienced by all accounts. And he ran a great race behind Auguste Rodin in the Derby. And then after that, he went to Royal Ascot. He won there. He went to the King George at Ascot again. And he ran a brave race behind two very good horses in Westover and Hookham. And he came back and he ran a very, very good race in the Irish Champion Stakes. And I thought that was probably as good as he was, but in fairness to him, he put up a performance of immense courage to win the Champion Stakes itself on Champions Day at Ascot. It was a huge performance. I thought as the race unfolded that he was in big trouble. He was at the back of the field, it was pretty deep ground, and I thought Frankie Dettori was going to end on a pretty sour note, his career in the UK. But the horse, Frankie Dettori, somehow conjured up a really big, strong effort from him. He had to dig deep into his reserves. And I must admit, when he was then targeted the Breeders' Cup, there was talk about a potential tilt at the Breeders' Cup Classic. I was surprised because I thought he had such a hard race at Ascot, and he's had a few hard races. The run at Ascot in the King George was also a really tough race, and I thought it'd drag it out of him. But he's come back and he's finished third at Leopardstown. But the last run, it just leaves a doubt in my mind as to whether or not he can possibly be at his best after so many hard races, especially one that was only just a couple of weeks ago. That's the big question mark. And even when I questioned Frankie Dettori, who rode him that day and is due to ride him again on Saturday, and I said, can you be confident that he would be at his absolute best? And even Frankie admits to not being able to be 100% confident about the horse being at his absolute best in such a deep race, in such challenging conditions. So he's got a big ask on his hands, but he is a big horse. He weighs, I think, 550, nearly 575 kilos, might be more. He is enormous. He was an enormous 2-year-old, and he's filling out that frame. He's a very, very good horse. But I just question whether or not the run at Ascot last time, where he had to dig so deep into his reserves, might just leave him a little bit dull come the big day on Saturday.
King of Steel, son of Wooten Bassett, out on the track right now here at Santa Anita, and in that loaded Longines Breeders' Cup turf, part of the Saturday card here at Santa Anita. Starting to warm up quite a bit. When we started, it was about 54 degrees, but with the sunshine coming out, getting up to about 67. They will be racing here on Thursday before the 2 championship days of racing. Let's talk to some local connections with Michelle Yu.
Well, guys, one of my long shot horses this week is definitely going to be Desert Dawn, and I've caught up with the mastermind of Desert Dawn, the barn mom over at the D'Amato barn. Sherry, tell me about this filly.
This filly, we've had her since she was a 2-year-old. She came in kind of tall, linky, always wanted to run, but really didn't grow into herself till like 3. Maybe now I feel like she's the best she has been. Super, just straightforward, loves her job, and we love her. It's just a neat filly to have around the barn.
Well, you get on her every day, right? Tell me some of her personality traits.
You know, she loves just to kind of hang out. She loves to train. She's always ready to go. And then when she's done, she'll just walk, drop her head, and just act like it's all perfect. I don't know. I love this filly. Oh,
Don't
here's my
listen to
husband.
anything she has to say.
Phil, why do you think that Sherry was a good match for Desert Dawn?
She's my best hand. That's why. No, she does. You know, she's loved this filly ever since we've gotten her. She's developed her, taken her to the Oaks, and we've had a great time. And but she's due for a win. I'm hoping it's this weekend.
I like her this weekend, especially 21. She's totally my long shot play, you guys.
Yeah, she's going to get the pace. She's going to get some speed to run at finally.
I love it. Okay, Phil, you're allowed to go. I'm going to hang out with Sherry some more. I want to know when you knew she was going to be a good horse.
I've loved her from the first day I got on her, so I always thought she was a nice horse. So just because she has a stride that just kind of keeps carrying you, and she does it really effortlessly. So that's her advantage. It's just a nice, long, flowing stride that she can just do, and it's easy for her.
All right, It's Halloween at your barn. We've been there already trick-or-treating with some of your horses. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
Well, Snickers. Let's go Snickers. I'm not a Halloween person, but Christmas, come by.
Wait, you're not a Halloween person? You have your whole barn decked out.
Well, because it's Breeders' Cup, but come by at Christmas.
Are we giving out gifts or eggnog?
Oh, yeah.
And I want to know what the drink is you're drinking in the breakfast marquee this morning.
We're going to go a little whiskey and orange juice.
Me too, guys. See you later.
Sherry, here's the deal.
Me 3.
hold the orange juice. Like I'm going straight up whiskey. We keep talking about that breakfast marquee. A lot of people gather there early in the morning during training hours and before their horses go out. It is a great social area, and so we're very privileged to have that. Is there, in your mind, ever a local advantage, a home track advantage when it comes to the Breeders' Cup?
Well, I think that horses that get to have races over the track before have an advantage in that you know whether or not they like the track or are at home comfortable, able to run their best races. The other part of it, I would say, is that there is a comfort level in walking out of your own stall versus having to ship in. But then again, this is something that the top horses do all the time. So I think there's a little advantage, but there aren't many advantages at all when it comes to races like the Breeders' Cup. Desert Dawn's interesting, though. What she gets as an added benefit is a lot more speed than has ever been the case. In previous races, she's been up against it with Adair Manor, and now you add horses like Idiomatic into the mix, and a much more heated pace could really help her a lot. And by the way, I like gummy bears.
Okay.
Myself. I go
on
for
the record,
gummy
we've
bears.
had Twix, we had gummy bears, we have Reese's, and our advantage on this show is the insight of Rishi Prasad.
Well, I'm hoping to get some insight from Harry Burns, who's a very talented young rider in the UK, here riding a couple of horses for primarily Carla's Way for the Crisford team. Carla's Way preparing for the juvenile turf for the fillies, and also Algiers, who also runs for the Crisford team here in the dirt mile. Let's just deal with Carla's Way first of all. How is she doing, and how do you think she'll be suited by that particular race?
She's doing brilliantly. She's quite a laid-back filly as it is. But it's a 2-year-old coming over here. You never know, do you? But first day out on the track today, she had a pony with her. She was brilliant. Yeah, she's quite a forward-going filly. She travels quite strongly on the bit. So that was it was a what's she going to be like? But she was brilliant, honestly.
And is the ground the key for her as well, as much as anything else? I think she, seemingly looking at her form, the way she moves, that fast ground really suits her.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, she's actually quite versatile. She ran a soft ground at Goodwood, ran a great race there, but she's probably one of the best horses, best movers I think I've ever ridden. She just floats along, and and obviously being with Algiers, he's a bit of a pro now, going overseas.
You were just telling me, you're reminding me that you'd ridden him to win as well at York.
Yeah, first run for us over in the UK last year at York. His first time in a handicap. I think he had something like 10 stones, so they thought they'd take a bit of weight off. Yeah. He absolutely he hosed up, which was good. Yeah.
I thought he had a really good chance in the dirt mile. I like what he did in Dubai. The fact that he, the 3 runs he had there, the 2 rounds of the Al Maktoum Challenge, and when he was second to Ushbar Tesoro, he travels so nicely on the dirt, even kinder than you imagine most horses do.
Yeah, I mean, he just loves. He seems to come alive when he goes overseas, and again, he's a brilliant traveller, and he absolutely loves it out there. He doesn't need a pony or anything. As soon as he gets on that track in the morning, he just takes it like a duck to water.
So confidence high in the Crisford camp.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Thanks for talking to us, Harry.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right, especially with a big moment like that, you want a jockey who is even-keeled, and you certainly have that there. Looking out on the racetrack, things have slowed down, not behind us with the schooling here in the paddock. And how about this? Our mascot, Maggie Becco. Yeah, that is our official dog of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. She's got her own little jockey trying to find the winner's circle. Run, Maggie, run. Thank you, Chris Stapleton.
Dreamstorm to win the Rico Woodbine Mile. She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger.
Snake Neck Spear and Sheen Murphy get through and have won.
It's getting really tight. The star of the season, Roaring Lion.
The purple cap, Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won.
The other midline, Mongostina has just won it with Mosse.
Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
It is going to be Caravel to win the turf sprint.
As horse racing's greatest take the stage at the Breeders' Cup,
we're working to provide an ecosystem of care to keep these athletes safe. With comprehensive veterinary examinations starting weeks before entry, up until they leave the starting gate. With extensive racing, surface testing, and measurement protocols. New national uniform regulation and rigorous enforcement under the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. And with the addition of advanced technology and new diagnostic tools, we're taking great and positive strides. But we are committed to doing much more. So no matter who wears the crown, safety runs first at the Breeders' Cup. To learn more, visit breederscup.com/safety.
Welcome back to the Sportsbook Draft, where FanDuel's pick is in.
With the first pick in the 2023 Sportsbook Draft, FanDuel selects horse racing.
Brilliant pick, as FanDuel becomes the first and only sportsbook app where you can bet on horse racing.
Just a savvy move by a savvy franchise. New customers get a no-sweat bet on the Breeders' Cup up to $200.
It's like they know each other.
What do you think Rob's saying to him right now?
Probably something about oats.
With NetJets, travel will always be personal. We do everything it takes to make every flight exceptional. Every single detail of your experience is personalized, just for you. As our standard is not just to meet our definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours.
I'm Mark, and I live in Vero Beach, Florida. My wife and I have 3 children. Ruth Ann and I like to hike. We eat healthy, we exercise. I noticed I wasn't as sharp as I used to be. My wife introduced me to Prevagen. So I said, yeah, I'll try it out. I noticed that I felt sharper. I felt like I was able to respond to things quicker. And I thought, yeah, it works for me.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Welcome back here to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, and I thank everybody for sending me tweets or X's, whatever they're called, about who you want to see on the breakfast show. And Chad, overwhelmingly, I heard Zandon.
So you're going to see me.
There were like 2. I think there were 2 people that wanted to see you.
Because my mom and my dad. Yeah.
Is that what it was? It was like they said their last name was Mound.
Yeah, no. Very close. Yeah, that's okay. No, it's but Zandon right here. Come here.
We're trying to get him in the screen. So we had him in the screen, and then he tried to eat me. So I moved away, and then he's playing fetch. Let go. He literally is playing fetch with a stick right here. Chad, you now have drawn the rail in the Classic. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, hopefully it's the shortest way home, right? And got a great jockey on the horse, like we spoke about with Frankie. Just hopefully he breaks away there clean, and there's a good, solid pace in front of him. And I'm very happy. I'd rather be inside than far outside with this horse. 1.25 miles is about his limit, so I'd like to get a good ground-saving trip on both turns, and hopefully we can work our way out in the stretch.
Looking back at his last race, obviously it was a nice, emphatic victory. Maybe the field behind him wasn't as tough as you're going to face here, but he doesn't know that, right? Did he come out of the race with some confidence with that big win?
He did. He came out of there, very fit, very focused. I love the fact that he's coming off a win where he finished his race off the right way through the wire and really galloped out strong. Yes, he beat inferior horses in this last race, but that's just what I think he needed at this time. And, it's a tough task, but he's never been doing it better.
Can I say something very cool? Zandon is like a true black thoroughbred. We generally don't see them. We see dark bays, but he is legitimately dark. I love that. I don't see a lot of them.
He's a very rare horse, and everywhere we've taken him, people just really marvel at him. His just handsomeness, his color, and his movement.
Are we talking about you now?
Oh, back to Zandon? I'm sorry. I got distracted there. No, Zandon's okay. What a beautiful guy he is. And come here, bud.
He is going to bite me. He wants to bite me. He wants his stick back.
He only likes to play.
Okay, I know what his Halloween costume would be. He would be the Ichabod Crane horse with the headless horseman.
That was way before my time, so I don't remember any of that.
You haven't been to Keeneland during Halloween?
Oh, the headless horseman?
Yeah. And his horse is like this big black horse.
No, I wasn't. I didn't make it to Keeneland this year, so I missed it all. I missed all the fun.
Goodness gracious. Okay, I have the stick that Zandon, I did bring him a carrot, but Chad told me my carrots are too dinky, that Zandon only eats all organic carrots flown in from Australia.
No carrots for the horses unless they win. Mean dad here. You have to win to get a carrot in this barn.
I'm glad I'm not trick-or-treating with Chad tonight. We're going to step aside for a quick timeout. We'll be right back here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
Hey there, it's Craig Carden. I know I can't believe it either, but the World Series is officially here. So if you're choosing to make a wager on the series this year, please be sure to do so responsibly. Gambling should always be fun, social, and entertaining. If at any time you reach a point where it's not all three, take a break, take a breath. Go to FanDuel.com/playwell. Go there right now. Run. Go there and learn more.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning, which ranks even higher than the 18th best feeling, saving a kid from a well. 59 years later. Find the #1 feeling winning on FanDuel Casino Reward Machine. Free to play every day with a chance at a $2 grand top prize.
With FanDuel, every night is a watch party. New customers bet $5 to get $150 bonus if your team wins. Bet all the stars with all your friends and tell them that they get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us with any $5 bet. Only on FanDuel. New customers bet $5, get $150 bonus if your team wins. Plus NBA League Pass on us.
Hey, babe. Rick Dutrow is back at the Breeders' Cup. That was St. Liam, who basically guaranteed to win. I mean, he's brash. He's ultra confident. I thought it was kind of interesting at the post-draw with the video last night leading in about White Abarrio, who's going to send on the Breeders' Cup Classic. They just said, Rick Dutrow's been away for 10 years. Well, there's a lot more to that story. He was suspended for 10 years, and for him to come back his first year off that suspension and be in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and the way it happened with White Abarrio, who was in Saffie Joseph Jr.'s barn, is quite a story.
Yeah, there has been a lot of moving parts with White Abarrio, but what I think was most significant about him when you're talking about him going into the Breeders' Cup is the fact that when transferred to Rick, he was sitting on a big race, right? And then ended up not running again until June 10th. So he's off from March to June. His first start back was a third in the Met Mile against Cody's Wish and Zandon. And then he came back in the Whitney, and boy, did he step it up. It was an amazing performance. Now, since then, he has had some stops and starts in his training routine, due in part to them not being able to work him because of a lingering foot issue that hasn't necessarily sidelined him, but it has prevented him from putting in workouts at particular times. So he's not coming in the way the schedule was mapped out originally. However, his workout here at Santa Anita was, and that was his ultimate workout prior to the Breeders' Cup, one of the more impressive workouts, and by all accounts that you'll see from a Breeders' Cup Classic contender. So he's still coming in the right way as far as how he's moving, how he's training, how he's adapted here to Santa Anita, and he's got the goods. I mean, he comes off that win last time out. I also think those who play sheet numbers or speed figure numbers would tell you that this is sort of the horse to beat in the Classic.
Well, that workout you talked about, the final quarter mile was 22-4. He was finishing.
Amazing.
He loves it here. But you and I were down in South Florida at Gulfstream Park back in early March, and I was told, it was my understanding, they didn't even know if he'd win that optional claimer, and if he did not win that optional claimer, he was headed toward some time off. Now, he won that optional claimer. He gets a freshening, so to speak. He gets a new barn, and here we are. White Abarrio is a serious contender in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, and
I've been very excited to see this horse. I have to tell you, before all of this came up with him missing a couple workouts, or them postponing workouts, I should say more correctly, I had him on the top. Of my Breeders' Cup Classic list. This was going back even before. I loved him in the Whitney.
Well, and I did, only because that was the race that Cody's Wish was going to stretch out around 2 turns, see where they were. And when he didn't run, I thought, well, what to make of the race? I came here not believing in White Abarrio. I did like him in the Whitney, not believing in White Abarrio. Now, as things have changed dramatically and the way he's been in the mornings, I'm with you now. You were ahead of the curve. One of the things that has changed in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, if you were with us earlier, you saw the interview from Joaquin Jaime with Jenna Antonucci, trainer of Archangelo, unfortunately breaking the news that he would have to scratch from the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. But we wanted to show it one more time for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, and also a demonstration of just how genuine and how much we love these horses. And Jenna Antonucci kind of speaking for us all, a chance to have the horse of the year be in a $6 million race, and she's walking away for the most important reason of all.
Yeah, Todd, thank you very much. Here with trainer Jenna Antonucci, who has the Belmont Stakes winner and Travers Stakes winner. Peter Pan winner, multiple graded stakes winner, originally going in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but unfortunately some breaking news that Breeders' Cup officials just announced right now with Archangelo not going to be competing in the Breeders' Cup. Take me through this timeline from last Saturday. What actually happened with Archangelo?
He's honestly doing great. He's bouncing and thriving and happy in a stall. Like we've talked about all week long, the left hind shoe, we pulled off, and it just, he's not fully resolving, and we're running out of time. And as we've talked about from day one, this will always be horse first, no matter absolutely what. Sure, there's big racing coming up, but as we famously talk about, spreadsheets and time frames, they don't really care about. And so we have so many amazing options here for being able to diagnose and figure things out. They have amazing modalities that we're going to take advantage of that. And so to be able to do so, I've run out of time, and we've run out of time, because obviously you have to sedate horses and do those kinds of things. And so with having withdrawal times and all of the things that we have put in place that are so important for us to continue to do right by our horses, we need to do right by him, and missing a race is going to be what it's going to be this time.
As you mentioned, you ran out of time. In a perfect world, how much more time would you need to get him healthy to be competing in a race? How much time would that actually need for you?
We haven't had the opportunity yet to answer all those questions. And so it's, it'd be throwing a dart at a dartboard at this moment. And so right now, we're going to stay focused on him, make sure he's doing awesome and thriving and healthy. And, like I said, lean into the vet crew out here. They've all been amazing and really trying to ensure that we're stewarding the best possible decisions for these guys. And just John Ebert and I, we've talked a ton about this. And if we have ever had any question or doubt, it's a no. And so for us, it's a no, as I know it would be for every other owner and trainer and every horseman on the backside. And so we're going to stay down, and we're going to double down on that. And unfortunately, it means we get to miss the Classic this year.
You horsemen and you horsewomen, you guys surprise me when you take your lumps with news like this, because it seems like you're taking it incredibly well at this moment for being so fresh.
It's not about me. I've said that from day one, and that would get me emotional. I'm not going to get emotional this morning about this, but no, listen, it's about him. It's his journey, and I've said from day one, it's his journey, and whatever we accomplish is so cool and great and all of that, but he's going to be okay, and I'm going to make sure he's okay, and John's committed to that too. And he is. I'll send you guys out video later on. He's, tearing the barn down right now, but I'm not comfortable. Of course. And if I'm not comfortable, then it's a no, and we're committed to this process.
Well, Jenna, thank you so much for coming over here. Thank you for the time. And I'm so sorry that you're not going to have Archangelo competing in the Breeders' Cup this year.
We'll be fine. It's all good. Thank you.
All right, guys, Jenna Antonucci in the breaking news here with Archangelo not going to be competing in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year, joining Go Rocket Ride and Mage as defections in the Classic here at Santa Anita.
Jenna Antonucci has shined brightest whenever she's in front of the media and behind the scenes. She must be amazing to work for. We will always remember after Archangelo's win in the Belmont Stakes, where she was asked about the fact that she's risen through the ranks, and she said, "If you don't have a place at the table, make your own table." And she's done that. And then even with this announcement with Archangelo, just showing what's so special about her. But we have also learned since that time that Archangelo will not race again. He has been retired. His owner, John Ebert, who was referred to by Jenna Antonucci in that interview, confirms that Archangelo will be retired. He will stand at Lane's End in 2024, and that is posted on X by David Grinning, a fantastic reporter for the Daily Racing Forum. All right, caught up on what's been taking place this morning. Let's go back to Michelle Yu.
Thanks, guys. I'm joined right now by Christophe Lemaire, who is the assistant to Christophe Lemaire. We call you Little Christophe. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. I'm used to it.
So you have a couple of horses here. We actually just had some out here behind us, but we've been waiting so long they had to go in. Who else is still going to come out today?
Okay, we still have two on the card. Mondego for the Twilight Derby and a filly called Breathaway for the Autumn Miss, which will be entered on Wednesday for Sunday.
All right, let's talk about the Breeders' Cup horses. I've seen Carson's run the last couple of mornings. How happy has he been since he's come to Santa Anita?
Well, he's full of himself. Yesterday he was fresh. We only jogged him once. But today he galloped. He galloped an easy mile and he looked really good. Yeah, it's just... he's a kind of horse, he's always better on the move. So, but we took him by the paddock, and day two was better than day one, because he was full of himself yesterday. But today seems okay.
He actually won the Summer Stakes from an inside draw. He draws the outside for Breeders' Cup now. Is that going to be a concern?
Of course it is, because obviously 14 is not that great, but it doesn't have that much early speed, so I'm sure the plan would be just, try to save as much ground as possible and try to find his way out, yeah.
I want to talk about roses for Deborah as well. I felt like even though she got defeated last time, the effort was still so solid.
Yes, it was, because she hated the ground. I mean, it was very, very, very soft, and she's been great for us all year, and even at Saratoga, she ran a couple times, and one time was on good ground, and she still won it. She's doing super. She looked great through the year. She developed into a really nice mare, and she filled up. And now we're hoping for the best, because she's doing well, yes.
I think that it was just such a sportsman-like move to still run her, even though the ground wasn't ideal. She's got to be thrilled with our firm ground we're going to have here at Santa Anita.
Yes, I mean, the plan was obviously not to give her that much time off between Saratoga and the Breeders' Cup, so we had to find a spot somewhere. And so we ran her there, and like I said, the 1, 2, 3 at the top of the stretch was 1, 2, 3, so they were not closing that day because of the soft ground. But like I said, she's doing super, and I'm sure she's going to love that turf.
And we'll round it out with Big Invasion.
Big Invasion drew post number 1, obviously for Saturday, and he's doing great. Same thing, obviously the 1 hole is obviously the shortest way to the wire, but he's doing good as well, and hopefully be if we can probably end up being mid-pack. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of speed on the outside, circle around, and then try to make his way out. But he's doing great too.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll get to see some of these guys this week. I have gotten to see them, but I know we haven't got cameras on them. What time is all of them going out tomorrow, so we can have them run it down the truck?
Usually, Big Invasion goes out in the dark. He goes at 5:45. Then we have a 6:45 with Roses for Deborah, and then we end up being mostly like 7:45, 8 o'clock with Carson's runs.
Well, that explains why we haven't seen them, because they go out before the show starts. But we'll do our best tomorrow. Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
Little Christophe. But look, behind every very successful trainer, there's an assistant who's right there with them and equally talented.
Absolutely. And I would say that for the majority of the trainers here, they would deflect or defer any of the praise to those assistants that have been with the horses wherever they've wound up most of the time.
And we will have those horses on tomorrow's show. Right now, on the backside, Joaquin Jaime with trainer Dallas Stewart.
Yeah, trainer Dallas Stewart has 2 Breeders' Cup victories, brings in a team of 3 to the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita this year. Let's start with your Breeders' Cup sprint horse and Hoist the Gold. Got back into the winner's circle last race at Keeneland Racecourse, but take me 2 and 3 starts back. What happened in his California tour over at Del Mar?
I mean, we just didn't get out of the gates running good enough, I guess. You know, the races are fast. You know, he just couldn't get in position to win. So he got in position, but it was kind of like out of position for Del Mar. So, you know, the horse trained wonderful, getting back to Kentucky, worked him, he black lettered work. So we went back after it, winning again. Didn't get it done. Got him back home. We just stuck with the plan. But the horse trained wonderful, and Johnny Velasquez rode him just terrific. Got him in, engaged him early, and so I think we got him right on. He came back with a minute work, you know, for this race, and he seems happy and healthy and ready to roar.
All right, Future Stars Friday, you have the Louisiana bred in Accommodate Eva in here. What gives you the confidence to take her into Grade 1 company off that maiden win?
Well, you know, I mean, listen, she's doing really, really good. She had a big race. We put blinkers on her, changed her just dramatically. And, you know, I mean, she's coming off a win, 7 furlongs. We think that she'll handle the distance fine. She's got a great pedigree. So we're going to give it a shot and see. Murray Valley's always game to give it a whirl, and we'll see what happens. If she runs 1, 2, 3, it's a big plus.
You have one early on Saturday in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile in Shirl's B. Lightly raced horse, I believe only 3 lifetime starts. Was that a pretty tough ask coming in off that long layoff from Dubai, going a mile and 3/16 at Churchill?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we kind of sat down and talked about that it probably wasn't the right race for him coming off the layoff. Yeah. You know, the goal was to kind of get him moving forward. Hopefully, you know, have a Breeders' Cup horse, but you know, it just wasn't the right plan, we're thinking back. So we got him back, worked him twice. He black lettered at Churchill, 59, galloped out in 12, came back with a 46 and 4, 47, and just can't hold him on the ground. So, you know, 50 bred the horse. He's got the mare, he's got the stallion. You know, he says, listen, I believe in this horse and I want to try something big with him. I said, well, here we go. So here we are. So I love the horse. I mean, I'm hoping that he can handle the competition.
So at least for a couple of these horses, you're saying they got the black letter works, talking about horse, the Gold and Shirl's B. Is that normal for them? Are they generally fast workhorses, or are they tipping their hand to you?
Yeah, I mean, a little of both, right? So you want to be ready, but you got to, you know, let them finish up and work good and gallop out good. You know, those works at Churchill. I mean, 59 and change, galloping out in 12, that's really hard to do. And they've done it, and they came out of it healthy. So we're going to see where it puts them.
Now everybody here in Southern California at Santa Anita, how's the team settled into their barn?
Very good. I mean, listen, the horses are eating well. They're happy to be with this beautiful sunshine. I love Santa Anita. I love racing here. And we'll see how we do Friday and Saturday.
Appreciate the time, Dallas. Have a good morning here.
Thanks for everything. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
And when you look at the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series, Hoist the Gold benefited by the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. Definitely needed that win to get into the Cutter Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Absolutely. I mean, and that also helped pay the way, right?
Yeah, right,
Took care of the travel expenses. Shirl's B under the radar a little bit, but training really, really well for this.
Andy Biancone getting a travel allowance and $100 per day for eating. I don't know if we've taken care of dill pickle, though, but we should, Andy.
Todd, dill pickle's getting plenty of carrots between sets, but we're joined now by Ramos Cootie, regular exercise rider of Charge It off. We're finished, but a distance going into the mile now. Hector has been aboard him since he was a 2-year-old, so he knows him very, very well. He's doing the track here, and we're just gonna go stand in the gate before he goes to gallop. Hector says he's been handling this track really, really well. I'm being aware not to get pony because he loves ponies, if you know what I mean. And but you can just see him riding a big, beautiful horse. How he's developed so much. I was a big fan of his when he started on the Derby Trail at Gulfstream Park, and it's just so much fun to see him and root him on here, Todd.
And this is one of the horses that we were talking about, Caton, where the trainer left the options open. Todd Pletcher had cross-entered, but ultimately decided for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
And I think that the reason he opted for the other course with his other horses had to do with pace. So I would guess that he feels like the distance here is better suited for where his horse is at. Charge It, you know, started out as a horse who would tend to lag behind the field a little bit and took a little while to get, I shouldn't say lag behind, but just took a little while to kind of get that extra push at the end. He has really matured a lot, though, and changed. And been able to now put himself into the race and still be effective at the end. His last in the Woodward at the distance of ground of 1 1/8 miles was even, I'd say. He finished 4th behind Zandon, but if you look at his races at a mile, he's been able to finish a little bit more effectively. So I think rather than focus on pace, it's focus on distance, and in this case, what's best for him. But Charge It is a horse that just physically, I mean, always had a lot of the right ingredients, but to me, now really seems to be putting it together mentally and physically together. Beautiful horse, and I think it's interesting he'll go to the gate and stand because, again, we want to keep repeating what you want. And if there are going to be any issues or any little quirks, if horse is going to act up just a little bit or get antsy or a little overexcited around the gate, you want that to happen in the morning before the big dance. So they'll go, they'll stand, it'll give the gate crew a chance to get to know him too, they'll back him out, and then they allow him to gallop around in his regular routine. The more you do that in the morning, the less trouble you usually have in the afternoon.
A product of Mandy Pope's Whisper Hill Farm. She has put a huge investment into her broodmare band, and it's paying off with horses like Charge It, a Son of Tappet, out of the Indian Charlie mare, all take charge. That is on Saturday, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, Charge It for trainer Todd Pletcher. But then there is Future Stars Friday, and taking a look at one of the horses preparing for the juvenile out on the track right now, Fierceness.
This is another Todd Pletcher runner for Rapoli Stable, a son of City of Light, who broke his maiden in the mud at Saratoga in August in commanding fashion. He went right to the front, and boy, he relished the going. He came back in the Champagne on a sloppy track, but a different track. Rather than Saratoga and a sprint, he was going a mile at Aqueduct in the Belmont at Aqueduct meet, and he didn't fare well at all. He didn't get out of the gate as cleanly as he had, literally and figuratively, and he almost kind of lunged, and in the process, I think became discombobulated out of the gate and just wound up wrapped up and distanced by 20 lengths. That is definitely not indicative of what he's capable of.
Yeah, Todd Pletcher said as much. He goes, it just was one of those days, we're going to throw it out and believe that he's the horse we first saw.
And this is the type of horse that could certainly rebound and run a spectacular performance, because that first race was visually spectacular. Todd is really spot on with his young horses. So mile and a 16th for a horse who's by City of Light out of a Stay Thirsty mare should be right there. And Todd has so much experience with the family here, with the Dam and with Stay Thirsty and with Quality Road, the sire of the sire, that I really think he kind of benefits from that knowledge, that background, that experience with this particular family. So obviously this horse tipped his hand to him.
Yeah, with Bob Baffert being so dominant in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, sometimes when you come to California, it seems like not only handicappers have just resigned themselves to the fact he's going to win, it seems like other connections as well. That is not the case this year. He's going to bring 3 quality horses, but you look at the 2 horses that Todd Pletcher is bringing in conjunction with Fierceness, he's also got locked, and Brad Cox could not have been more confident in his comments to you about Timberlake.
Timberlake is the winner of the Champagne on that muddy racetrack and has done a little wrong in 3 starts. He was second in the Hopeful, broke his maiden impressively, going 7 furlongs, continues to progress. Now, a real contrast from the Brad Cox barn is this horse, Zozo's, who has been around for a while and maybe has taken just a little bit longer to show his true ability. At the age of 4 now, he really came to hand and was impressed and earned his spot, I think, in this race with his win in the ACAC at Churchill. In the 1-turn mile situation, he had won some nice races early on in his career, but he's kind of lacked that consistency. But that said, he's 7 for 11 lifetime, and it was a horse who competed in the Kentucky Derby off of a 2nd place finish in the Louisiana Derby. Sometimes that can be both a good thing and a bad thing, because I think you try to make them the 1.25 mile horse that you need for the Kentucky Derby, when in reality, he's probably best at the mile distance, that this gives him the opportunity to really showcase his talent and his speed. And he is, I think, I wouldn't say controlling speed, but he's definitely a speed presence in this race that doesn't have as much early speed as you might have thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, if someone is going to challenge him early, they're going to have to really run to get to Zozo. So I love his chances to get out to an early lead in here. And I just felt, look, Cody's Wish last year, great win coming in, going to be a solid favorite in here. But he really did have the perfect pace scenario last year to run into.
Very different situation this year for sure. I mean, when I was looking at it last night, I thought actually that Dallas Stewart's horse, Shirl's B, might be the horse to supply the pace. He was dying to run in the Bourbon Trail. But with that said, Zozo's really does have a lot going for him, and he worked very quickly, which usually suggests that he's going to continue to show that speed.
Okay, we've seen a variety of different approaches on the main track this morning. There's other schooling going on. It's at the starting gate, and Andy Biancone is there now.
Pletcher easy is going to go stand in juvenile fillies peasant, and now Fierceness, who's running in the juvenile, getting a to stand. Todd.
All right, we obviously having some difficulty with Andy's microphone now, but we're watching.
So the Todd Pletcher horse is going to stand in the gate, as she had said before. And now what you're looking for is just that they're comfortable, that they aren't panicking or getting agitated, that they feel like the gate is no big deal.
Well, our big story yesterday was Ushba Tesoro, and this really turning out to be a disaster. They're going to be back at the gate tomorrow, Wednesday, and they've made some adjustments. They felt it was the inside of the starting gate. Were you concerned with what you saw yesterday?
No, if it continues, I'd be concerned. You know, I think this is why you school them. Charge it being backed out there. This is why you school them in the morning. You want to give the opportunity.
Andy, we think we have the microphone worked out. We see Charge It now just going to the front of the gate. How's this session going?
Todd, everything is going perfect. This is exactly what you want to see. Horses relaxed and happy, walking into the gate with no drama. Fierce even open. That, for me, is a really good sign because it shows he's relaxed. He just released a bowel movement in there, so chill, so happy. Everyone had their ears pricked, were very focused, and now they're just going to jog home. They each looked fantastic galloping, especially Charge It. Wow, Charge It really strong on the bridle, looking very, very well on this track, Todd.
Fierceness leaving some souvenirs. We'll have to collect some for Dave Weaver. He likes those. But the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fierceness is kind of the rebound horse, an attractive price at 6-1 on the morning line for a horse who was an overwhelming favorite last time out on the Champagne. And then, as you said, there is a case to be made for Charge It. He's always had the ability. Will he put it together at the right time? And we always see that at the Breeders' Cup, a horse that you knew at the beginning of the year was probably destined for a race, a championship race at the end of the year, and then they kind of lost their way, and then they jump up at a big price. A lot of times, your original intuition on a horse as a handicapper in this sport is right, and you should play it at the Breeders' Cup. Okay, in Italian, speaking of horses who are kind of in and out of form, she's awesome with her running style. Go out there and catch me. Well, last time out, her stablemate, the less fancied of the two, Gina Romantica, ended up beating her for trainer Chad Brown. What do you make of where In Italian ultimately ended up for the Breeders' Cup? Do you like her and the spot they picked?
I do. I think that in this case, you could have made a case in either direction for either horse, because when you're talking the fillies, it's a little bit tricky. You've got fillies who can either go against their own in what might be a little bit easier spot, although, as I mentioned earlier, there is no such thing as an easy spot in the Breeders' Cup. But in the filly and mare turf, you're talking a longer distance. Then, on the other hand, when you go in the mile, you're talking about some of the most brilliant milers around the world. So a tougher spot, and both these horses coming off really good efforts at the mile. I would say that In Italian is a catch-me-if-you-can type of horse. And that probably plays to her strengths in the spot that she's in, whereas Gina Romantica probably could have been more versatile either way, I guess is where you say it. I think that even though intuitively you think that if you go the shorter distance, the speed would be better, the truth is that you have more horses with tactical speed at the shorter distance, the mile, than you do at the longer distance. So In Italian, going maybe a touch bit farther than would be the absolute ideal for her, but she showed she almost won this race last year.
Yep.
Was beaten just a length by Tuesday coming in from Europe, and that was one of the best showings of horses that were based in North America against what was an incredible day for the Invaders. So In Italian has the goods, I think, to be effective any place, but I like where she ended up. I really think it is more of a catch-me-if-you-can type of situation that plays to her strength, whereas Gina Romantica in the mile is going to sit the same type of trip she would in the filly and mare turf.
If you were with us yesterday, our reporters had a conversation with Ignacio Correas about Maid of Vita and her coming out on the track this morning, and now we get to see Maid of Vita preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. She's just 1 for 8 on the year, and that one win was at Thistledown. As far as beating the top of this division, she was second in the Juddmonte Spinster last time out to Idiomatic. That's the good news, but she was never really a factor. She was second, beaten 4 1/4 lengths by Idiomatic, who is one of the horses to beat in here.
She's a filly, though, that's been knocking on the door every single solitary time she runs, and it's regardless of the competition. Her only lackluster performance was in the Locust Grove, and I think she just didn't show up. I mean, she just didn't have, I don't know what the reasoning was for it, but she, you know, everybody has a bad day, and she just had an off day. The second place in the Spinster was a good race. I mean, she wasn't a match for Idiomatic on the front end, but there was no pace in that race. There's going to be more pace here. That works to La Vita's strength. She does need a little bit of pace. That win at Thistledown was against lesser competition, but Interstate Daydream's no slouch. And she did beat Interstate Daydream on the fair by 3+ lengths. And she's come competitively with Amore. And then that last race may be signaling that she's sitting on a best performance. She's trained really well at Keeneland. Nacho Correas, a very, very good horseman. So I would say that La Vita is primed for a top effort. It just becomes a question of whether you believe that top effort is good enough to beat the others if they run their best.
La Vita, 6-year-old mare by gemologist out of the Gestad mare Vienna Cantando, was bred by Haras Santa Olga in Chile. La Vita preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup returns in just a moment.
Life is good. Really, really, really good.
Life is good. Opens up here.
He's a rocket ship.
Life is good. Clears the field. Still in command.
Galloping without any urgency.
Back in the winner's circle.
No challenge from anyone.
They ran him off their feet. Life is good is looking good. And this colt is incredible.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
Garbage time. That phrase never sounded quite right, because no part of football is meaningless. So while some folks see garbage, FanDuel sees treasure. We see spreads to cover, overs to hit, and chances to live bet from the first down to the final whistle. So don't just watch football this season, cherish it.
Bet $5, get $150 bonus if your team wins, plus a profit boost every single day. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Introducing Giftbox, winner of the Grade 1 Santa Anita Handicap. He's a 3-time graded stakes-winning millionaire with 4 triple-digit buyers and a 4 Ragazin to his name. He proved himself early as a graded stakes-placed 2-year-old, and now his career as a stallion is just getting started. From the first crop of the leading sire Twirling Candy out of a multiple graded stakes-producing mare. Giftbox, only at Lane's End.
Flightline has gone right by Life is Good and comes into the final furlong with a 3-length lead. Life is Good trying to plate the second. K-Bear's third, down to the 16th pole. It is Flightline. It is spine-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, secretariat-like
That was last year. Flightline concluding a meteoric career. We only saw him for 6 starts, but what a 6 starts they were. And when you hear Larry Colmus breaking out the comparison to Secretariat, that is saying something. In the modern game, he is one of the most brilliantly talented horses we have ever seen. He then went off to stud. Let's get an update on how Flightline is doing at Lane's End.
After utter dominance on the racetrack, champion Flightline arrived at the prestigious Lane's End farm to begin his new career at stud. And he did so in the same way he competed, with authority.
When he came off the van and he just stopped and let out a big whinny and let all the other guys know he was here. Yeah, they all responded to him, and then he just put his head down and walked into his stall, and has really been so easy ever since.
Flightline had created such a buzz about his stallion potential, a percentage of his stud rights sold for $4.6 million in a first-of-its-kind auction at Keeneland with a metaverse experience.
To make something like that work, you got to have something that's a real one-off. So we took one share and made it available that way, and it was incredible, and obviously the result was amazing.
And when it came to breeding, Flightline had, well, just a little something to learn.
He walked down to the breeding shed the first time, obviously not knowing what was going on, but once he figured it out, he didn't want to leave. He said, "Oh, now that's not a bad thing. I got to go back there."
After covering 152 mares with his first crop due next year, Flightline's taking a well-deserved break at Lane's End Farm as they prepare for the 2024 breeding season.
It's amazing how quickly the progeny get here. It seemed like it wasn't that long ago. Gunrunner was winning the Breeders' Cup Classic down at Del Mar.
It does go by very, very quickly, although probably not that way for those who are involved with the breeding and the foaling and the waiting and the watching to see how they develop. But especially for Gunrunner, that's been the trip of a lifetime for Ron Winchell and Three Chimneys partners, because that horse was not only unbelievable on the racetrack, who progressed with each race and each start, but he has taken no time at all to become one of the most dominant sires we've seen. And Flightline is potentially able to follow suit because the brilliance on the racetrack was remarkable, and now it won't be very long before we see his offspring on the racetrack.
Well, and another name that is going to be added to that already impressive stallion list at Lane's End is Archangelo. We brought you the news that he was retired. The events of this morning and the announcement by Jenna Antonucci that this horse would not be going to the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, and then the follow-up news, Archangelo retired. He's got a great home at Lane's End. Speaking of a great home for horse racing, Santa Anita and the First Bet Group, the Stronach Group, have gone out of their way, Michelle Yu, to make this the safest place for thoroughbred racing in America, and you have one of the examples of that.
That's right, Todd. I am joined right now by renowned surgeon Dr. Ryan Carpenter, who's also an everyday practicing veterinarian here, but he has invited us into the on-track clinic today. So we are actually on the backside of Santa Anita, and this clinic is pretty state-of-the-art.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate here at Santa Anita to have an actual hospital on site. So our horses, when they get injured or when they have routine surgeries, are actually managed in their barn, in their normal environment, brought to this facility, surgeries done, and then they're taken back to the barn and managed afterwards. So we're very fortunate to have that opportunity here.
Can you tell me some of the things that we're seeing for people that might not know?
Yeah, so if you've never seen a horse go into surgery or under general anesthesia, it's pretty interesting. So in this room right here, we're going to actually walk the horse into the room. We're going to sedate them, and then we're going to place them against that wall. We're going to use this door here then to squeeze them in like they're in a starting gate. We're going to give them their anesthesia, and then they're going to sleep and go to the ground. Once they go to the ground, then we open up the door, we hook ropes to their legs, and then we're going to lift them up with this hoist. This takes them all the way to the ceiling, and now they're going to be upside down, and they're going to go right along this rail into the surgery room. So here's our surgery table here, where they're placed on their back.
We call this dorsal incumbency.
This is dorsal recumbency, yes. Very good. And then sometimes we'll do things on their side. That's called lateral recumbency. Up in the front here, we have our anesthesia equipment. So we're going to monitor blood pressure. We're going to monitor heart rate. We're going to monitor their temperature. And then this machine that you're looking at right here is called our ventilator. And this is what's going to breathe for the horse while they're under general anesthesia, and also keep them under general anesthesia with the gas that we give them to keep them sedated. And so in this room, we have our arthroscopy equipment here. When we take chips out of joints like knees and ankles, we have our fluoroscopy unit over here to the right, and that helps us with basically real-time radiographs for fracture repairs. So all of our complicated orthopedics procedures, we'll use the fluoroscopy unit. So while it looks like a small building from the outside, we can actually do great things on the inside, and it's just a real value to our horses and to our horsemen and to our owners to have it here on site.
And in addition to the race horses on the track, there are external horses that come here for surgeries.
Yeah, so we do have a small percentage of our population that we do surgery here on off-track cases. Generally speaking, we like to focus our work on the racehorse type injuries, and so when an off-track horse has that type of injury, they often come here because what we do here is just at a high volume compared to what they do at other places. And so we're kind of the experts in this region when it comes to arthroscopy, airway surgery, and fracture repair.
This might be a weird question. What's your favorite surgery to do?
I love fracture repairs because you take a horse that's sore, can't use their leg, bring them in here, and then the moment they walk out the door, they're happy, they're equal weight bearing, and you can see an instantaneous relief in their discomfort by just putting a single or a couple screws in their legs. And so it's very rewarding to see a horse that is sore become instantaneously comfortable with a relatively quick procedure.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of the other diagnostic tools that we have on site here at Santa Anita? And I know we're going to get to visit them later this week.
Yeah, so we have a full imaging center here, which is awesome. So we have a PET scan, a bone scan, and an MRI, and that's just 3 state-of-the-art pieces of equipment that helps us understand physiology and what's going on in the bone of the horse to help us prevent injuries before they actually become fractures where they need to come into this room. The other thing we have on site is a full lab where we can run all sorts of blood work, Coggins tests, things like that. So we basically have everything you need here, and it's rare that a horse would have to leave the facility or the grounds to go get additional health care. So these horses here at Santa Anita have better health care than most people in the world do.
I come here for my health care too, actually. That's not a joke. Also, I want to ask, you've been around for a long time on the racetrack. What do you think has been the best tool that we've seen come around the last decade or so?
I mean, there's a lot of things, and it just depends on what you're looking at. If you're looking at, from a private practitioner's, racetrack practitioner's perspective, the sesamoid bone is the hardest for me to identify when a lesion or a fracture is coming. And so for me, the PET scan has revolutionized my ability to understand what happens with the sesamoid bone. So I would say from an imaging perspective and from a direct impact on preventing a catastrophic failure, the PET scan has been amazing from that perspective, and it doesn't compare to anything else.
I really appreciate the time and all of the transparency that you've been giving us this week on the show.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was Dr. Ryan Carpenter, and we are in the surgical suite here on track at Santa Anita.
Horse safety and the well-being of our equine athletes means so much to racetracks across the country, but a special tip of the cap to First Racing and what they've done at their properties. Santa Anita has led the way for them, and in essence has led the way for the rest of the industry about how it should work here with the PET scans, with that surgery. And, our biggest story to start this breakfast at the Breeders' Cup was the injury to Go Rocket Ride. He was able to have surgery right away and give his best chance at recovery.
I think all of the veterinarians involved and all of the horsemen as well would concur that the ability to diagnose things before they can happen is the number one priority, and then the number two priority is the ability to immediately address whatever the concerns are if something does occur, and to give them the right care, the right therapy, the right surgical process as quickly as possible. And we have really come a long way in a short period of time in that regard.
And by extension, the Breeders' Cup only associates themselves with venues who can accommodate their lofty goals as well when it comes to the health and well-being of our equine athletes. Let's get back into the preparations for 2 championship days of racing. Taking a look at Future Stars Friday and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It's Omaha Girl out on the track for trainer Jorge Delgado, a winner last time out of Gulfstream Park in the Hallandale Beach. Although that's a 1-turn mile, she'll be facing a 2-turn mile and a 16th in the NetJets Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
We were just talking about hot sires. Omaha Beach is definitely one of those at the top of the class with his 2-year-olds showing a lot of precocity. And if they follow suit and are anything like their old man, they're going to be able to handle those 2 turns that you address. She has won 2 of 3 races and I think shown a lot of versatility, because when she debuted at Monmouth and Maiden Company, it was 4.5 furlongs, and then she stepped up in only her 3rd start to that 1-turn mile. There was some moisture in the track and she won very impressively as well. South Florida at one time was the place for 2-year-olds to come en route to success. They overachieved as far as their odds were concerned. They produced a number of Breeders' Cup winners.
Brave Raj.
Brave Raj, and also more recently even horses that Feather, Awesome Feather.
That's right.
That they just get a good foundation, they get a head start because of the program and the weather that are both coming together, and the opportunity to start 2-year-olds a little earlier in the season. Also the close proximity to Ocala and Gainesville, where you have so many 2-year-olds based that can then come to the racetrack. But this filly is interesting. She was a $400,000 Keeneland sales graduate and is you can tell why. She's beautiful. She's got a lot of legs. She's got some size and presence, and is doing everything the right way. Of course, she's got a tall task ahead of her in this particular race with, I think, more star power in the NetJet Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies than I've seen in a long time.
I've called her the Annie Leibovitz of thoroughbred photography, but in truth, she's just a treasure in her own right. Barbara Livingston, if you are not following her on social media, you should. Every venue she goes to, she gives you a perspective that even sometimes we can't see when we're here. She is with Joaquin Jaime.
Yeah, Todd, thank you very much. And Barbara Livingston, been working for the Daily Racing Form for many years, and her work has earned her 6 Eclipse Awards. So very pleased to be joined by a 6-time Eclipse Award winner. One thing about the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup this year at Santa Anita, Barbara, is that the 10th, 20th, 30th, and 40th runnings have all been right here at Santa Anita. So go down memory lane with me and what you remember. 1993, 10th edition of the Breeders' Cup right here. That year, Arkong at 133 to 1. What do you remember there?
What I remember is not having much of Arkong all week. We were all set up for Trando, if I recall correctly. And Arkong was just one of the, you know how you have the huge groups of Europeans that go around in circles, and we're like, well, we'll get all of them. I maybe had 5 frames of him from the entire week until he won, and even then we said, who was that? But apparently Bailey said the same thing, like he didn't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
So we didn't know either until later that evening.
All right, so a couple other names that ran on the program that year. You had Kodashan, who won the turf, beat BNBN. Lure, a 2-time Breeders' Cup mile winner. What do you remember about some of those horses?
One of the fun things about Lure is we're right here in Clocker's Corner, and he would stand out. He would have stood out all day if he could, and he just was such a classy horse, and he would just look at everybody, and of course Mike Smith would get on him in the morning. And how great a daily double was that daily double. Watching them, and with the backdrop here, and with Lure, he was a painting in the mornings.
All right, let's go 10 more years further after that. 2003, it was so hot that year. I remember being here, ash was falling from the sky. But Mr. Mandela, as Tom Durkin said, man, oh Mandela, 4 Breeders' Cup wins. What do you remember about 2003?
I remember Charlie Sheen in the winner's circle and thinking, that's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, everybody in the winner's circle did this gesture. So there were maybe 50 people all doing that, which is pretty great. I think Bo Derek was there too. But who doesn't like Mr. Mandela? And so it was so exciting to see his horses win, and they all look great all week. Yeah. But you can't possibly expect that to happen, regardless. Pleasantly, perfectly. Okay, you win, Mr. Mandela. It was wonderful. We went back to the barn afterward. They had the 4 cloths all out in a row. And again, we posed it with the magical backdrop, and again, looked like a painting.
When you look at some of the winners in 2013, just 2 little horses won that year by the name of Beholder and Wise Dan. That's two of some of the recent greats that we've seen in racing, right?
Yeah, actually, I was looking back at pictures last night from some different Santa Anita Breeders' Cup, and I started looking at the incredible wealth of horses. That not even just the 10 thing, but add in something like Zenyatta. Yeah. But when you get Beholder with Mr. Mandela, and then Wise Dan romping again with those ears pinned, woo! beating Europeans isn't easy on the turf. They're pretty good. And Wisedam is just, you grit those teeth, and the pictures of him, he looks like a wild horse coming down to the wire. And I'll always be grateful to them for being so helpful, and the horse just being such a monster. We just saw him a few weeks ago, and he's looking great and living the life at the Leprestes farm. So.
And one of the horses that we've seen actually just win in the last couple days that has gotten a lot of attention from you on social media is the gray son of American Pharaoh and American Theorem. Can you describe that picture of American Theorem for me that's getting so much attention?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, he was beautiful when he's got that big, strong head, which some people don't like and I adore. Yeah. And he was at Oakland a couple of years ago, like 3 years ago. So we were following him then. And when I saw him out here, he has turned into a monster. I think I wrote that he's hubba hubba, and he's totally hubba hubba. Yeah. The rider's so kind, Shane, he said, by the way, if I stop him, he loves to look at people. I said, well, so he was already about to stop. And the horse looked at everyone as if he's king of the world. And he is. I love when a horse knows they're king of the world.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for taking us down memory lane. Enjoy the 40th running of the Breeders' Cup here at Santa Anita.
We'll do our best. We can't wait to see what happens here.
All right, guys, that is Barbara Livingston, and I'll tell you this, here's one of my cheat sheets when you're looking for horses. If you want to know who's already gone on to the racetrack, you just need to ask a photographer like Barbara Livingston, because trust me, all the photographers know who has actually already been out there on the racetrack.
Well, in truth, she stands above all of them. Her photographs are going to exist 50 years from now to capture this moment in time in horse racing and previous times where she has taken pictures. But she's also like the Ken Burns of our sport. She has a project where she has preserved the work of Jim Rafferty, who was really, of his time, the best equine photographer out there. We got to know him in the final few years of his life down in South Florida. She has preserved his work. It's been on display at the National Racing Museum Hall of Fame, and it is fascinating. She keeps bringing up pictures and discovering more things that Jim did. I love that work she does.
I do too. I mean, it's a living history, if you will. And also on social media, her taking it takes a lot of time. She's doing her work every day, and then every night she's coming back, she's going through her photos, and then she's posting things continuously so that it has an even greater audience for both the history of our sport as well as what's happening now and the stars of today. So it's just amazing work that she has done for so long. They talk about that third eye, or that internal eye that sees something that nobody else sees, and that's what Barbara Livingston has, and she shares with all of us.
Barbara, thank you will never be enough, but thank you very much. We are very thankful that we are participating in the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup. So to celebrate, we have the Breeders' Cup 40 Days of Giving, which will benefit 11 thoroughbred charities and remains open through Saturday. A $40,000 match donation from the Breeders' Cup and Ken Fryrich's Better World Records is open now. If you would like to contribute, visit breederscup.com/giving to show your support. It's 40 days of giving to benefit 11 thoroughbred charities and to remember the 40th edition coming up of the Breeders' Cup World Championships right here at Santa Anita. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup returns right after this.
Warfront. This son of Danzig ranks among the world's elite sires. Ranked #1 by percentage of stakes winners, graded stakes winners, and Grade 1 winners. No stallion has a better strike rate. Warfront is the sire of over 100 lifetime stakes winners, including some of the sport's most talented runners both at home and abroad.
Verstappen! War Bomber in front. War Bomber's won the King Edward.
Here's the finish, Ancient Rome!
Warfront, standing at Claiborne Farm.
Dreamstorm to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger.
Snakeneck Spear and Shane Murphy get through and have won.
It's getting really tight. The star of the season, Drawing Line.
The purple cap, Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won.
The other midline, Mongostina has just won it with Mosse.
Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
It is going to be Caravel.
Maximum Security proves he's the real deal with a gate-to-wire win in the Florida Derby.
Champion 3-year-old.
Maximum Security has won the TVG.com Haskell Invitational.
11 triple-digit buyers.
Maximum Security. He smoked them in the Cigar Mile.
Grade 1 winning 4-year-old.
Maximum Security takes them all the way in the TVG Pacific Classic.
Maximum Security.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one also runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, our best-selling big fan hands down. BigFans.com. Comfort without compromise.
Early voting comes inside. He wins the Preakness by elect.
Disarm takes the Met win.
Anita, they win the Bet Parks Pennsylvania Derbies.
Wicked Halo, who wins the Raven Run Stakes. Nobody catching Society.
Red Route 1.
Cyberknight has won the Haskell over Tava and Gunna in the Forgo.
Echo Zulu wins the NetJets Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
It was raining cats and dogs. It was so horrible. There was mud everywhere, and I texted the assistant trainer, Scott Blasi, said, how does he like the mud? And Scott said, I don't know, I've never seen anything like this before. But the skies cleared slightly, although it was still a muddy mess.
Deal for the Breeders' Cup Classic, sent on their way to a perfect beginning.
We were kind of nervous, but we were waiting for him to make that first corner. And when he did that with ease, we didn't worry as much anymore.
Into the turn they go in the Classic, and Hard Spun has ensured a good pace. Then we come back to Curlin. Street Sense just waiting patiently down at the rail. And
we knew that that would be the Horse of the Year race because everyone had been battling it out throughout the year.
Curlin and Street Sense are making their runs now. And Street Sense is threatening to run a big one. Street Sense and Curlin, they got to get to Hard Spun.
It was wonderful to watch him come from a little ways out of it and past that great crop.
A 3-horse race as they turn for home in the big one. Hard Spun, but Curlin is breathing down his neck. Street Sense literally scraping the paint, but Curlin strikes the front, and Curlin is powerhousing home. Hard Spun, Street Sense did not go on, and it's all Curlin in the race of the year. For Horse of the Year, it's Curlin in an absolutely stylish performance.
That was one of the best. It may be the best. That was the ultimate race. He's responsible for a lot of our success, and we take the best care of him, always have, and always will.
And Curlin's, we talk about sometimes races, how a horse looks out of it and then rallies. I look at Curlin's stud career and off to a brilliant start, then kind of a lull, and now back better than ever. He has been certainly one of the most impactful horses over the last 15 years.
I think, too, when we think of the Breeders' Cup Distaff with Curlin fillies right there in the mix every step of the way, it's not just throwing the occasional runner, but with consistency, runners at the highest level and in all categories of that's the thing that has been amazing to me to watch Curlin as a sire, is that the offspring can kind of do it all.
Yeah, he was a sight to behold in person physically. You could not take your eyes off of him, and he's passing that down to his progeny. Let's look ahead to the field that will assemble in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. The news that Archangelo is not going to go, so the horse that was on the rail. From a post position point of view, it doesn't change the race a whole lot. It clearly takes out a major contender. You wonder if they may adjust the morning line because he was the second choice in the morning line. But again, with the inside scratching out, the rest of the field not truly affected here.
No, and Zandon, who will now be on the inside of this field, is the type of horse that can sit a stalking trip, White Abarrio just next to him in the gate has a little bit of speed, and then we kind of space it out with Saudi Crown right in the middle of the field having speed, and then to the outside we get into the favorite, who I think was a little bit of a surprise to many people, with Arabian Night ending up the morning line favorite. Despite that outside draw, he moves in one, obviously. I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest with you, that he's on the outside. Do you?
I don't think so at all. I agree with you. It might even be to his benefit. I was just checking my email because I've been dealing with the Breeders' Cup ticket office trying to find the best spot for my loved ones, my friends and family who are going to be out here for this 40th edition. You should be doing the same. Thank you to Brittany and Brandy who've been taking care of me. They're ready to take care of you. Go to breederscup.com/tickets. We'll be back after this.
An amazing thing. But as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Hey there, it's Craig Carden. I know I can't believe it either, but the World Series is officially here. So if you're choosing to make a wager on the series this year, please be sure to do so responsibly. Gambling should always be fun, social, and entertaining. If at any time you reach a point where it's not all three, take a break, take a breath. Go to FanDuel.com/playwell. Go there right now. Run. Go there and learn more.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning. Winning ranks higher than any other feeling, higher than number 30. Saying, I told you so.
Told you so.
Higher than number 89, the feeling of catching your car keys with one hand. And number 78, thinking it's Friday when it's really Saturday. New players get 50 chances at winning with their first deposit on FanDuel Casino.
At Calumet Farm, we're